I have not.
Hey there, and welcome to episode number 71 of Killer POV. I'm one of your co-hosts, Rob G. from FEARnet and Icons of Fright. With me, as always, Elric Kane, inside horror, scratching his beard.
Yep.
He's got a beard now.
Grizzly.
He looks grizzly this
Grizzly.
week.
Well,
Grizzly.
I'm Mr. Mom, part deuce.
All right.
Doing
You're-
the Mr. Mom style. That's what you do.
You've got your drink in a mug.
I am drinking
Very
a mug.
Beard mug.
Yep.
Very
Yeah.
manly.
I just spend the whole day moving the small infant from place to place.
Right.
Keep him entertained.
Okay.
Keep myself sane. Bekah knows how it is.
Yep.
Yep. Rebekah
She's passed
McKendry.
one of them through.
Fangoria.
Well, thanks to my youngin', I have I'm recovering from Mondo cold. So my voice is somewhere between sultry and smoker this
Ah.
week. So
How do you feel about that, Elric?
Totally fuckable.
Thanks.
That's what that accent is. That's,
Holy
Thanks. This
smokes.
is totally fuckable.
yeah.
Wow.
Dave,
Keep that.
get her husband.
Wow. It's going to be one of those
Man,
episodes. huh?
No, I'm
he's been
drinking
annoyed
tea.
by this. He keeps telling me, he's like, you sound like shit. Stop talking. And I'm like, come on.
That's what I mean. Stop talking is what I mean.
Wow. All righty. Well,
Anyway, for the people on the airplane listening to the show,
we got banned. Don't you remember?
that's right, we got
Are
banned.
we banned in
It's all over.
airlines?
Yeah, of course.
Damn it.
Let's jump right in. What is?
How do we come back from our best show on air?
You thought it was the best show?
I
on
think
air.
Really?
it was the one I was most interested.
I will say this.
So I
though,
can't say I
it's-
didn't listen to the show, so I don't know. If it's any good.
Two weeks in a row, I've bumped into people out and about and be like, "Hey, man, love the new episode. 3 hours, huh?" And I'm like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
yeah.
I'm sorry."
We
I'm like,
gotta-
No,
we
it's
got-
cool. I just,
Yeah, tonight will be under 2 hours, even if we're in the midst of an interesting story. If it's 1:59, he's
cutting-
going to cut the show.
Yeah, we're
Parker's
cutting.
going to be like, you guys are done. You're
We're only
done.
allowed 3 hours if it's like Wes Craven or Stephen King from now on.
Last week,
Yeah.
I normally consider our show to be pretty niche. Last week, it was so niche, it was like picking a sore.
I think that's why I
me.
liked it.
But it was
yeah.
cool.
Yeah,
It was cool.
It
yeah.
was really cool.
You just don't get to
but-
talk to people who know Hitchcock, or knew that much about it and had met everyone involved.
Yeah,
And
a lot of rich history.
I found
Yeah.
it really interesting.
And it was fun hearing from our fans, like the Hitchcock movies they like, and
Yeah.
what they thought. Somebody had written saying they checked out Hitchcock after the show because they weren't interested until they heard Steven on. So
Yeah.
that's cool. Yeah, it was fun.
So
stuff.
we're going to go, it's going to be goofier tonight.
Much goofier.
A little
Well,
lighter.
you'll see.
One of our topics coming up will be we're going to look at paranormal investigation movies.
Right,
We'll
because we've
explain
got
why.
some
Yeah.
investigators coming on.
Yes.
Some real deal.
Paranormal investigators coming on the show. I'm pretty excited about it.
Did they call themselves crypto? I don't know.
Zoologist?
I want-
Cryptozoologist?
Something like that.
I want my
I'll have to ask
future
them.
read. That's kind of it.
Well,
I just want
I
to
can do
know.
that.
We're going to do a power. Yeah, you can, what's our future?
I don't even know.
Eric's getting all saucy
There's
in
no
here.
other girls here. It's really sad.
Right.
know.
Right. Well,
And I'm drinking
Do you
tea.
ever
one.
see any other girls? It's like
Not
me and
really.
Selena.
Yeah,
that's
that's
about
about
it.
it, yeah.
We'll have a
So-
second woman in tonight. You behave yourself, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Bree's cute.
Yeah,
You
we do have a
behave.
female
That's
coming
true.
on tonight.
I've met her before,
All right.
Yeah, it's funny that how I'm going to have this persona as
You're just
weird.
You're the
creepy-
sleazy guy.
I'm the
We're
boring
gonna
and
break the
rapey
leash.
guy.
We're going to break the leash out.
That's right.
Anytime there's a woman
Me and
in
Eli
here.
Roth have a little club together. I want to get into serious stuff now because
What's serious?
We are talking about paranormal investigations, and it really just happened accidentally that
Yeah.
both the films I saw this week are completely in that genre, and
Oh,
neither
good.
of them were planned to be. So before we even get into our topic, I'm going to start obviously for the fans, and we'll start with Bekah's interpretation first. But you guys have been, I love it when people are highlighting a film for me to see. That's kind of why we do the show, is for you, highlight films for you guys. But when people do it reverse, it's great. So obviously Lake Mungo, I'd heard good things about. It seemed like a lot of you were pretty adamant on us checking out this film. Let's start with what
Yeah.
your thoughts were. And
Last
did you finish
week,
it?
Yeah, I
Okay.
did. The big hoopla started last week when I said I had started it. I made it about 15 minutes in. I was so bored because it looked like the entire film was made of B-roll. It was like a travel log, but not even a fascinating one at that.
I didn't
And
see much
so-
of the travel. I was looking for that. I mean, I guess a little bit, yeah.
Last week I had stopped at 15 minutes in, and then I was like, I don't get it, guys. I don't get it. And then everybody started responding to me on Twitter, like, oh my God, you have to finish it. You have to finish it. So I finished it. Still not my favorite film ever, but I understand the appeal. It definitely does have an interesting twist to it and a kind of interesting take on what it is. The whole story is about this girl who's drowned. And then through this investigation,
It's a family grieving
over her
about
death.
her death.
And then the family starts kind of doing their own research. They go to see a psychic. They're trying to figure out.
We'll start at the most important part, which for me was the biggest note, which is that it's shot in documentary format as opposed to pure found footage. It's literally structured like you're watching a documentary. And that would be, for me, my biggest issue with it. It's a very, very well-constructed movie. Like, they do a great job. Like, probably the best I've seen of that kind of movie. But the problem is, 2 seconds in, when you know it's not a real documentary, it's very hard to give a shit about a story. And the difference is found footage, even though I'm not a big found footage fan, it's the reason they keep getting made is it's a very effective way to kind of throw an audience member into your film, and they just kind of, it's like you are an active participant or something. You have to catch up and you're kind of just in it. Whereas with documentary, it took me, I think the reason it took you so long to get in, it took me up to the first kind of semi-twist, which is like maybe 35, 40 minutes in about what you've been seeing before I kind of then got invested. Yeah. Because I just feel like, I'm watching not a real documentary. So it's hard for me to really know.
Because they're interviewing her family members about how she had drowned, and there didn't really seem to be anything really creepy surrounding the drowning. But then things start happening around the house that are a little bit creepy, but then they discover, they're not real. And so then you're like, why am I watching this? And it was over halfway through the movie before something happened that I was like, okay, now I'm peaked.
Yeah, there's definitely a moment where it just like something, and with this, try not to spoil it for all, but just something shifts where it's like, that you think you've been seeing ghosts on photographs, then somebody reveals something, you go, now I'm a little more interested, and then you find, then it basically, the thing that I thought was kind of interesting, there's one thing this relates to you because you just told me you're watching Twin Peaks. The whole film is just total Laura Palmer. Anyway,
it's completely because it's the Palmer family. It's a drowned girl.
They even are named the Palmer family.
Oh,
she's been talking,
and it's about a girl with secrets.
She's been talking to a psychotherapist. She's had a whole weird sexual background.
Yeah, there's something weird with a neighbor
about.
That it's like, she's good at keeping secrets. And I'm like, okay, so it's a Laura Palmer
obviously
thing.
Like a huge Twin Peaks screaming at you. It even had like the Dr. Jacoby character.
That was a little. I kind of wish it wasn't the Palmer name.
It was a little on the nose.
But the film is done in what I liked about it, in terms of direction, is the person did a really good job for that kind of format. Like, it's honestly about as good as you could possibly do with that faux documentary.
Right.
All the performances are believable. It's pretty oblique at times. Like, they don't give you clear answers at times. No. And usually I really like that. There's something at the end I want to ask her about in a sec. There's, it's not, I read a weird thing with the director online where he's like, it's not really a horror film, which I thought was weird, like, because it is a horror film, right? I mean, it's not, the scariest, but there's no way
it's a slow burn. And I can't say that there's any moments where I'm like, oh my gosh, but
why was it
was put out by like horror? It was Horror Fest, right? Like one of the After Dark to Die For movies.
Yeah, and it went to.
And it's definitely one of the better of them.
I think it went to South by as well. I'm fairly sure.
The director hasn't got another project. I looked them up afterwards. But no, I would recommend anyone who hasn't seen it, I'd love to hear your thoughts. I don't know what everyone was talking about. They said, I remember BJ was like on Twitter, it's the scariest last moment I've ever seen. But what about the thing in the credits? So I was watching the
thing in the credits, I thought was just her and lightning.
Yeah, I didn't see anything that.
I thought that when they were talking about the creepiest thing ever, that it had to be what she saw at Lake Mungo that made her bury everything. Because that was kind of a cool twist.
There is a good supernatural twist in there that I hadn't probably seen in a film like this yet.
Yeah.
Very simple, but it worked.
It was the catalyst for everything that happened, though. And it was kind of like that's why she did everything moment. Well, most of it.
Let me ask you a quick, so if you haven't seen it, just for the next 30 seconds, turn off, because this is kind of a non-spoiler, because I don't even know if I'm right. But I need to ask you, because the ending in the relationship with her mother was really kind of confusing. Kept talking about how they kind of were very cold, and her mother was cold. And the last shot, one of the last shots, her mother goes into a room, picks up a cord. It seems like to me that the mother was going to go into the other room and hang herself. And it felt to me like it was a premonition that she was going to die. Because then if you watch the next shot, and I looked online, couldn't find anyone like really talking about it. The next shot, the two boys leaving the car. Almost like the whole thing's time is out of joint or something, because she picks up this weird cabling.
I remember
and then she walks out of the room,
and she walks
and you're
out
like,
of the room
why
and
the
closes.
fuck? You wouldn't have a
and
shot like that.
And then you hear the daughter's voiceover talking about how they're so alone and separated, and her mother's gone.
And then now my mother came into the room, and now she's gone.
So is that flashing picture during the credits, her mom hanging herself?
That's the thing. Like, I couldn't
thought
figure it out.
It was lightning in the background, because there were definite like vertical lines coming down, but it looked to me like lightning.
I'd love to hear from anyone who has seen it. And that's not a big plot spoiler, even if you did listen.
That's kind of
her
like
mother has nothing to
be.
really do with it, but it was just such you wouldn't have a shot like that at the end of a movie. Like, why would she pick up anything if it didn't have some relevance?
Yeah.
For some of the movie, I was thinking, did her mother have something to do with her? Who knows? Either way, but it's the other reason why it fits perfectly into this paranormal investigators is it's as they're trying to investigate their own daughter's life. Because that's where they think they can find the answer to her death. But there's a psychologist or parapsychologist character who I like the way he was treated, like pretty realistically, who was kind of a known psychic in the area, kind of a joke to most Australians who don't believe in it, and he gets pulled in. And I mean, it's perfectly of that subgenre we're talking about. Mm-hmm. Do you want me to talk about the second one I saw, or do you have one?
I only have one, so I can do it pretty quickly, and then we'll get back to what you guys have seen. But, I had a busy week. We did some shenanigans at Jump Cut for my birthday, which was a lot of fun.
Shout outs to fans who came, like Cody Jones.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Awesome. And that Hitchcock thing that Mike showed.
Mike Williamson got a trailer, a 16 mil of the Hitchcock, the trailer to Psycho with Hitchcock going through the house.
Perfectly timed.
Which was a lot of fun to watch right before the movie. Yeah. So that's pretty great. But I got together with my friend Kat Knipp, who co-hosts the Boys and Ghouls podcast, because she's a big fan of the movie American Movie with Mark Burchard.
That's one of my favorite movies.
Yes. And
he was out in L.A.
Was he recently?
And I saw it on Twitter, and I was like, I was going to suggest it to you to get him in. Because he said, he had a thing on Twitter, I swear, on Twitter, it said, hey, if anyone needs me for podcasts or thingies.
Oh, my God. And I was like, and in fact, I heard he did, she was actually telling me that he did a podcast recently that was really, really good. But the point being is, because, I've told you, and I've told her, and I've told everybody that listens, if you're a fan of Mark Burchard and American Movie, I strongly recommend Horror Business, which is a documentary by Chris Caratano. I haven't seen it in a couple of years because I'm slightly biased in the sense that I'm not even biased because I didn't know Chris when I saw the film and I really loved it and I sought him out afterwards. And then it got to the point where I went with him to tour the film a few times. Went to the Alamo Drafthouse, saw it there with. Ed Neal from Texas Chainsaw was with us. Joe Bob Briggs, who's in the film as well.
What's the film about?
It's interesting. It's not the traditional. I mean, horror business is a double meaning. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that this business is a horror, and essentially he focuses on 5 really off kilter filmmakers. I would say that Mark Burchard might be the most competent of the 5.
Well, I don't know, because the guy who made, I actually watched Catharsis.
Oh, yeah. Dave Stagneri, whose alternate nickname is Slave. He was in the band Bile. He, of the 5, I think he's definitely
the most. He made a film
most,
called Catharsis?
He made
It's really quite
That's so
good.
funny because in American Movie, the best moment of the whole movie is like, you know what Catharsis is, Mike? What is it?
But anyway, so he, so it's 5 filmmakers that are really on the outskirts of making horror films. And by that's 99% of them. It's, you know what I mean? It's not, it's not the Eli Roths and the people like that are making them. It's usually these people in the middle of nowhere.
Eli Roth now has probably been demoted to indie.
Well, we're not even going to go there.
Yeah. I don't even know if Green Inferno's coming out.
These people are definitely like directing horror films in their backyard, knowing that, no one may ever see it except for maybe their parents. And yeah, it's a whole different level of horror filmmaking.
Right. But I mean, the thing about it, and including Chris, who the filmmaker making this doc considers himself one of them. Netflix. I don't know. It used to be for a while, but I don't know if it is now.
You're welcome to borrow it.
I have a DVD. Chris has a brand new documentary called Montauk Chronicles, and he's due to come to town soon to show it.
Get him on, yeah.
And if he does,
he's a great guy.
I actually would like to do Horror Business at Jump Cut. I think it'd be fun to see his first movie there. Cool. But yeah, I strongly recommend it. It's pretty cheap online. You could probably, I think Image put it out on DVD. Cool. And again, it's just got a lot of heart and soul. And if you're a fan of Mark Burchard, it's not a sequel to American Movie. He just happens to be one of the subjects. And it's interesting because he's shooting his first movie since Coven from American Movie. Which is
like Oven, right?
Yeah, 6 years later, and he's just starting this movie, Scare Me, and this is 2005, and the title card is like, oh, it'll be done by 2006 or 7. He's still working on it right now. Like that's what he was.
But
on
I respect him more than
about.
most other filmmakers because I remember that scene in American Movie where he goes to the airport and he's sitting in his car and he's like, I come out here to do work and I come here to write and I'm not fucking leaving my car. And there's no distractions. There's nothing to do.
Yeah.
And I don't leave my car till I get my pages done. And like, I have a lot of respect for that's like an actual work ethic.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
And he's just in the middle of nowhere and he's got a, difficult life.
And he's got a lot of amazing things to say in horror business as well. Like a lot of Mark-isms, which I consider very intelligent.
I think he's great.
But yeah, it's great. I love the movie. It was great to revisit it after all these years and see it again. So I strongly recommend it.
I'm going to see it for sure. You've convinced me 100%.
Good. Let's do it. What else?
Oh, I'll do my other paranormal investigation.
Yeah, what you got?
Okay, so this one. Okay, so what I do sometimes is I avoid a movie when it comes out in theaters if it didn't get well received, and then if I wait until any journalist, doesn't matter who it is, if it's somebody I know champions it a little bit, then I'll often go, okay, then maybe I'll give it a try.
You saw The Quiet Ones, didn't you?
I did see The Quiet Ones. Jerry Smith.
I wrote it down as well.
Well, Jerry Smith, a couple days ago, Icons of Fright Family with you, Rob. He wrote, he didn't necessarily champion it, but he was like, no one liked this film. I really liked it. Mm-hmm. I'll tell you one thing about this movie, guys, that really will blow you away. It has a really great poster.
Come on!
I didn't think the writing was that bad.
I love Olivia Cook.
It might be one of my least favorites of the year.
Least favorite.
I kind of hate. It was basically, this is what it is. I'm gonna make a movie of sound effects, and they'll be. I was watching it late last night with everyone's asleep in my house, and I've got the dialogue on a certain level, and I'm watching this movie. When the sound effects scares happen, which is the only way they can even try to scare you in this movie, they are at about 10 times the decibel level, to the point where I literally fell asleep halfway through, like my eyes closed halfway through this film because I was so bored, and then suddenly I heard this just shrill, piercing, waking me up. It's not even, it's a pretty well constructed movie. It's not any incompetence. It's a part of horror I think we're past. I think it felt stuffy and and I don't think Hammer should be that. I got so excited whenever I see the Hammer logo come up. Mm-hmm. And I actually, I didn't mind either of the other two. I actually thought the other two were better than this one.
They kicked it off with Wakewood, which I was
Wakewood's really good. No, Wakewood's a good movie.
Innovative and
I really
smart
like Wakewood.
And out of nowhere.
That's edgy. Wakewood's an edgy film. But this, I just felt like it felt like The Ward set 20 years earlier. Both have Jared Harris as a doctor doing things, and it just, there was nothing in it to really grab me. I feel, again, it's the same thing with Lake Mungo. It's constructed, they're investigating thing where, because a little bit of it's found footage and some of it's narrative, I find sometimes those kind of movies are drawing greater attention to how contrived the movie itself is, because you're not getting into the movie as a viewer in a sense. But look, it wasn't like, oh, I hate it, don't watch it. More just like, I feel so deeply indifferent that I don't want to watch horror films like that anymore. To the point where I wouldn't even want to do this show and stuff if that's what all horror was. These kind of studio looking movies that are slickly made, produced, but you don't care. I've seen it a million times. What they're talking about, I've seen literally a million times. Oh, here's the girl. It actually reminded me a bit of Dread in the terms of having somebody you're doing an experiment on, locked in a room.
Wow.
But yeah, I really didn't, and then, look, I don't even fault Jerry at all, because every week I say a film that somebody out there is not going to like, but I still like to find films that way, it's so, but
it's
for
always
me,
worth it to take that gamble.
Yeah.
But I don't think, I see now why that film didn't connect. At the box office.
It didn't connect with many people at all. I thought that at least it was well paced and the writing was good. There was some clever writing to it, but
it wasn't bad.
I didn't enjoy it.
There's just nothing new on offer, and you can't, I guess, always get that. I guess I need to see what is it, Deliver Us from Evil. It's the kind of thing where I avoid that in the theaters, but if somebody tells me later,
everyone says that one's been good.
Really?
I've heard really good reviews of that.
Really? So. I heard mixed.
And next week, I'm seeing As Above, So Below.
That looked good to me. The trailer looked
Yeah, I'll send you the press screening. You guys should join
No, that
me.
one looked actually pretty creepy.
That one looked pretty creepy. I liked the concept of it, so I'm pretty excited to go to the press screening for that.
I tell you one thing I was thinking about a lot during this movie. I was thinking of how impressive The Conjuring is, in the sense that I think it's very hard now to make a scary studio-based movie where it's pretty artificial. You've got stars, celebrities in it, and you're trying to creep people out. And it made me realize, because all the elements are there in The Quiet Ones for that to be an effective thing, but there's something about it that is distancing. Whereas when you make something that's really indie, that's really raw, and you look at most of the hits we've had in horror, they usually come from that world.
Yeah.
Watching Quiet Ones the whole time and going, yeah, Conjuring's really good, and Insidious is really good.
Yeah.
Both those movies really showed how to get under the skin while still having celebrities on screen.
Well, that's craft.
I think that's the difference. I think this felt like relying so much on post-production for scares. It's just sound effects. There's nothing, not even a moment that scared me except jumping because of shrill, loud sounds. And that's not what it should be.
I talked a couple of weeks ago about Possession of Michael King and how it did that as well. I hope it's not becoming a trend. But I have to say, Possession of Michael King, it's coming out, I think next week from Anchor Bay. And I actually really liked that one. It had some genuinely scary moments, and it's found footage. And I freaking hate found footage. So for me to say that, it definitely had some appeal to it. but it did that same sound effect thing where you're just like sitting there, he's talking, and then it's like killing your ears.
In
like,
a theater, it's okay because it's professionally mixed, but at least it's professionally mixed.
I was sitting next to Brian Collins, and I've never seen him like, he was like grabbing his head.
But at home, it's a real problem.
It was horrible.
Because I don't want, here's the thing about a movie. You want an immersive experience where at no point, if possible, did you come out. If every 3 minutes I have to use my remote control to, graduate, your sound, it means you're totally out of the movie. Yeah. And I think that's a problem.
That's what I had with All Cheerleaders Must Die, which I need to go back and watch. Is I was riding that remote the whole time, where I was going back and forth because it was so loud in parts. It was just poor mix. But I'll watch that one again.
That was kind of fun.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, it's fun. It's light fun.
So this week, I finished watching Shark Week, which I only mention in, you guys are giggling at me.
Congratulations.
I mentioned because this round of Shark Week, one, it kind of let me down, and I'm a big Shark Week fan. But two, every single one was paced like a narrative feature.
And don't they show the same thing every year? Or is it new ones? I don't get it.
I mean, in past, there have been some new ones, but this year, the only one, they were all paced just like a feature of, we need to find this killer hammerhead. Okay, well, he's not here. Oh, we almost got him.
Why do you find sharks so interesting? I'm curious. Like nuns and sharks, that's your thing.
What's wrong with that?
No, there's nothing wrong with it.
It's not even just sharks, I have to say.
Why.
It's all aquatic creatures.
You need to make a nun-shark movie.
Holy shit. No, I'd much rather, I like...
Nuns versus sharks.
I think octopuses are far more fascinating, but then again, I also like insects, like insect horror films. So,
Octonunny.
Octonunny.
Octonunny. That could sell tomorrow.
Spider Octonunny.
Octonunny I would watch.
And then this one is, I'll call it fringy horror, but I can definitely make a case for it. Last night I watched Freeway 2 Confessions of a Trick Baby. So a couple of weeks ago I'd watched Freeway 1 on recommendation of Elric Kane. And it was quite possibly the most batshit movie I've ever seen. It is. It's amazing. So then I decided to pick up part 2. So I bought it on VHS because it never came to a DVD.
Never age.
And the weird thing was I realized once I started watching it, I'd actually seen it a long time ago because it used to play on Cinemax when I was in college. But I just thought it was like this weird, like, female prison lesbian movie, and I didn't even finish it. So this time I finished it. Man, that thing gets batshit crazy.
It is crazy.
It's got Vincent Gallo in it playing a nun.
There's part 2?
And it's
part 2 is where he's crazy.
Holy
it's
smokes.
insane.
And John Landis is in it playing the judge.
I don't remember that. That's awesome. I got to rewatch it. I haven't seen that since it came
through
out.
The whole thing, it's brilliant. And it's hilarious because the first one, the kind of outlandish exploitive nature is kind of subtle, and I can't believe I'm saying that, but it's a lot more subtle. In the second one, it's just like flinging it at you the whole time.
Yeah, it's more like an exploitation film.
I was raped by priests, and then this happened, and then I had to give this guy blowjobs, and it was just like continuous exploitation the entire time. And then we ate babies, and it's
that's realism
crazy.
For Trick Baby. That's his real life.
Well, and that's Vincent Gallo.
Vincent Gallo's website.
I don't doubt that
and you'll know it's real life.
So, but yeah, Vincent Gallo is in it playing a nun in a thong.
I got to see it again.
It's pretty crazy.
I haven't seen it for a long time. But the first one's a great film.
But yeah, the first one is based off Little Red Riding Hood. The second one is based off Hansel and Gretel. And it's definitely got a lot of horror elements to it that make it kind of appealing. And a lot of vomit. There's a lot of vomit.
This is a good chance to just slip in a plug for a really interesting movie. There's a movie I bet almost no one's probably seen called Criminal Lovers. It's a French film by this guy Ozon, and it's a Hansel and Gretel, but with older kids, and it has like crazy cannibal, like it's a horror film for sure, like fringe, weird art house horror, and it is twisted from like the mid 2000s, but it's the only really dark, twisted version of Hansel and Gretel I've ever seen. That I'm like, oh, that's besides what was that Paul Walker film that had nice moments of almost a Hansel and Gretel kind of thing.
Running Scared?
Running Scared. When
I like that one.
That has some cool fairy tale elements.
There's a Korean film called Hansel and Gretel that is absolutely amazing. It's about a guy who wanders, I forget what he's doing there. I think he wrecked his car, but he wanders into the woods one day and he actually like runs into the house of Hansel and Gretel, but they also have a sister, and it's phenomenal. It's beautiful.
We need a whole show.
Best production value
of
ever.
Hansel and Gretel. Our guests today are literally Hansel and Gretel. They're actually here in person. That would actually be kind of fun. Maybe we should get them to play characters.
Yes.
Welcome to The Mystic Party, the world's premier cryptopsychology show. I'm your host, Brea Grant.
And I'm your other host, Zane Grant, professor of occult studies, University of Cincinnati.
And I'm Southern California's leading psychic. I forgot to say that.
That's okay, though.
No problem. Hey, welcome to this episode of Mystic Party. We're doing a follow-up with one of our guests from the last couple of weeks, a very popular episode.
One of the most popular of all time.
Holy smokes,
People really want to know what's happening, Rob, with your problem since you started dating
I didn't know.
a vampire.
Did you break her up or break her up?
Who did you break?
We're currently on a little break.
You're on a break?
I'm not dating the vampire anymore at this moment. I would like to.
Good. Oh.
At some point. But much as I feared, as I told you guys.
Yeah. Well, let's do a little recap. So on the show, you were talking about how hard it is to date a vampire because, like, she doesn't want to eat meals with you.
I wasn't sure if it was her.
Right. We weren't sure if it was a vampire.
We figured it out together.
Yeah.
But she was.
She
was always posting Instagrams, but she wasn't actually in them. It was just like photos of stuff.
She didn't want fluffernutters.
No fluffernutters. She didn't want fluffernutters. She didn't really want anything that wasn't human blood.
Like being allergic to peanuts.
No,
she's a vampire. Must be.
Her Throwback Thursdays are people like Abe Lincoln and stuff. So she's been around for a long time.
She's been around. She's been around the block a few times. You know
Since
what
the
I mean?
first Thursday. Original Thursday. OT is her hashtag.
It's like
Original
her,
Thursday.
Adam, Eve.
Yeah.
So, Rob, what happened? You guys broke up?
I don't want to say that. I just want to say that we're on a break right now.
Oh.
Okay.
On a hiatus.
Because I finally confronted her about if she was a vampire or not. And I was like, look, I'm totally cool with it. If you are, it's totally fine. She'd copped to it.
Good.
And it was like, all right, cool. We're going to work this out. And my biggest dilemma is I just don't want to be turned into a vampire either. I totally don't want to live forever. I don't even want to live till like 65. I just
not even 65.
Yeah, I don't know.
That might be
how much fun can you
the
have?
most depressing thing I've ever heard in my life. I mean, Dennis Leary, when he talks about smoking, does talk about like at least smoking takes the worst fucking 10 years of your life, like the end.
The last one.
That part I can get into, but 65 is young
75.
now.
65 is really young. You're like not even retired yet.
Okay, Robin Williams.
I'm going to show up at 65 and give you a hug.
Well,
because she's going to live past 65.
She might reach 100.
I know. I know.
Rob,
it could be the big L, and I think she wants to change me. And I decided, you know what, I can't do. The
big L meaning everlasting life. Everlasting life.
Yeah,
for big
L. Yeah, that's a lot. That's a huge commitment for me. All right, everlasting life.
Yeah,
couple of years, great. Look, I don't have time. I don't have time.
You're not romantic enough to be a vampire.
But I do have time for dinner.
Yeah,
just not list that. You need.
Now, let me ask you an important question. Do we
Ask
think
God.
that vampires become more romantic because they're vampires, or they start as
if you had that much
romantic?
time to brood?
Yeah, then you start to turn it back into a teenager.
Portrayed as like I started out as like a teen idiot, but then after 500 years of searching the world, I became this poetic genius.
And you can become a lot pickier with eternity. Like you pick out one person to obsess over, and you can manipulate them and get.
I'd make a good vampire. I think. Now that I think of it, I'm gonna watch that Only Lovers.
That's alive.
It's alive.
All right,
Only Lovers Forgive.
Yeah, that, and then I'm gonna rethink my position here.
Actually,
I
really liked that movie, just so you know.
It's all about the hair in that movie.
I liked that movie.
Yeah, that was a fun one.
You need to be able to commit longer, Rob, to be with a vampire. I'm sorry, man.
I'll think about it.
Well, Rob, all of our listeners on Mystic Party, because this is the Mystic Party podcast, don't be confused.
Don't be confused. You dialed 864 Mystic 4. Turn your dial. That's right. It's on every channel.
Wait, you're from Cincinnati now? I thought you were from like Rome or some shit.
Rob,
somewhere in Italy. What?
If you the thing is, I'm an adjunct professor.
Yeah, at many universities throughout
That's how they
the
pay
land.
now.
So
That's how they pay.
Okay.
It's true. I can back that up.
Yeah,
That's
I teach wherever I can.
Yeah.
Right on.
Rob, our listeners all want to know. They want to know if you're not going to date a vampire.
Yes.
What paranormal entity are you going to date?
Because you are Rob Galluzzo.
That is what they say.
You're only gonna date.
Not Galluzzo.
Some kind. If I want to, all right. If I want to date some kind of other entity, I don't know.
Sasquatch.
Banshee. Banshee.
No, I'm not going Banshee. That's
Siren.
We had a man who wanted to date a Bigfoot once.
We did.
Yes, I've dated a
Tarantino?
succubus. It's really difficult.
Really?
Yeah.
Tarantino.
You need a laugh button
That
in
was a
here.
good one.
Tarantino. And we told him,
Yeah. He dated a
depending on the
succubus.
gender of the Bigfoot he wanted to date,
Oh,
he
the
should.
Bigfoot.
Yeah, if he wants to date a Bigfoot woman, construct a nice Bigfoot costume with a big prosthetic dick.
And a lot of stink, because they stink real bad.
And if you want to be dating a Bigfoot man or a homosexual Bigfoot, then you should wait. No, if you want to date a Bigfoot man who's straight, then you should make a Bigfoot costume with real big boobs.
Yeah, big boobs.
So let's go back to you being an adjunct. Because I think there's something in there.
I think that we can, but I wanted to finish.
Oh, Rob Galluzzo.
What kind of entity
if you
Rob is
wanted to
gonna
date a Bigfoot that's a homosexual,
No, I don't want to do the Bigfoot thing at all.
then
I'm
you
gonna
should
go
do the
back to
first
Are you
succubus.
costume
sure?
again. What?
Oh,
Succubus is good.
succubus?
I-
I'm gonna go back to succubus because you know what? Then that fulfills my death wish. So it's like,
To just woman in general.
yeah,
what I'm saying.
be with her for a little while, and then she'll be the end of me. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Wow, that's a pretty quick. They can take you out pretty fast.
Pretty damn
Succubus.
morbid.
so be
Yeah.
it.
All right.
Anyway, they've got psychic
Well,
problems.
Bekah
probably.
has a real
like a real one.
paranormal issue.
Well,
Yeah.
we're the
Dilemma.
experts,
I
so
need to
please
ask
ask
you
us.
guys.
Terrified.
Okay.
We're ready.
So I just bought a house a couple of months ago.
Yes,
And
congratulations.
thank you. And it's a renovation, and so we've renovated the entire thing, like from floor up. And like when we were taking down walls, we would find interesting things in the walls, like pennies and keys and things
Human
like
bodies.
that. Well, we found a couple of animal skulls, but it looked like things had just gotten stuck in there, like
Sure.
a cat had gotten stuck in the wall and things like that.
A cat?
Yeah, we did. We found the cat was like petrified, like it was like a mummified, like
Somebody lost a cat in the wall and they didn't bother breaking it out. Well, I guess I'll-
A cat would be pretty loud about that.
Apparently, the house has been vacant for 2 years before we got there, so there were a lot of cats. I'll say that, like
a lot of cats?
a lot of cats. It was a very cat-heavy place. But the creepy thing that the guys know about that I'm still kind of like, I don't know what to do about that. I would love some psychic advice on. So last week, I'm under the house and I'm changing out some of the plumbing pipes. Plumbing pipes. Let me try that again.
The plumbing pipe.
And I'm shimmying over because it's the crawl space under the house and it's really tight. And I feel something under my back. And I roll over and it is a cardboard box that has been smashed into the ground. And when I open it up, it is full. And I'm going to show you guys a picture right now. It is full of tons of assorted keys. And these don't look like, keys to your garage or anything. These actually look like someone's keys, like car keys. And there are
There's a damn
dozens.
murderer that used to live in your house.
Dozens
Telling
of them.
you.
So I'm pulling up a picture right now. So this is what was in the shoebox.
Wow, that's so creepy.
So
And there's human hair and teeth.
What did this thing say with on the keychain?
nothing. The only keychain in there that actually had anything written on it was a Spice Girls keychain. I kid you not.
I already know the answer, but go ahead.
Oh, wow, that's really creepy. No, Zane, you go ahead. That's really...
So I'm
looking
trying
at the
to figure
photo.
out, do we go to the cops? Should I think that there's some bad mojo going in my house? Like somebody else I talked to was like, you need to burn sage sticks throughout the whole house to purify the place.
That's just true when you move into any new house.
Yeah,
So
and
do
douse
that.
it with some holy water. That's just get as much holy water as you can and throw it on the floor. Any new house at all. But wow, those keys look really intense.
Yeah.
I think that there's one with a piece of lace on it.
That's the sexy key.
I'm getting a feeling here.
Oh yeah, are you getting a feeling?
Did you find that water bottle cap in there too?
Oh, I don't. We found a couple of different water bottle caps throughout the whole house, though, in the walls.
Oh.
I know you're not going to go to the police
No, we had no intention of
You
it.
should.
because you're involved.
I'm involved.
Oh.
Oh.
Just how long have you been in town, Bekah?
I
You
just
and
walked into
Dave?
this room, but I walked in, I knew there was someone involved in a key-related murder.
What's the mojo of this
Ooh.
room? If you looked around this room, do you
I would-
guys feel any kind of
Yeah,
vibe?
I walked in and I just felt like,
I got the shivers.
yeah, I could feel
Air
it all through my body. There was definitely
That's right, the
something
air
related to doors,
Yes.
opening, closing.
You guys are big movies fans, so let me put it in some perspective. In the opening of Deep Red, when the woman looks out upon the audience and then she screams because she's like, there's a murderer here.
That's how this room feels right
That's
now.
Bekah.
how it feels.
Bekah's implicit.
That's me.
Are you guys skeptical at all when you enter these things, or did you have to train? I mean, especially being adjunct, you had to train a long time, to be part time. Did you start as skeptics and then kind of learn, or do you not? You just forego skepticism and just believe, Agent Mulder?
Yeah, we have a lot of Mulder in us for sure. But,
lot of Mulder.
we're brother and sister, so we grew up.
Oh, you're related?
We are related. We grew up in a house full of paranormal
Grants?
activities
Oh.
and Grants.
Oh, you see? Yeah.
Zane and Brea Grant.
There were two
Two of them at least.
raised by.
And we were raised by ghosts. So that was sort
actually
of
raised by ghosts.
Yeah, raised by ghosts. So that was like how we got into it. But then from there, you have to go on and learn about vampires and Bigfoots and various demons and stuff. So the ghosts only got us really experts as far as being good
It was
at
a
ghost
lot
stuff.
like, I'll put it in the film perspective.
Okay.
again.
Please do, please.
The peanut butter conspiracy. Are you familiar?
No.
I've heard of this movie. I've never seen it.
Is this the one where the kid grows hair?
Correct.
Oh, slam that
Never
one.
seen that.
Check it
wouldn't
out.
have that
Check it
It's
out.
got Data from Goonies, and he goes bald, and then they make this solution to put on his head, and
It's
he
called
grows
the
hair.
peanut butter solution.
Yeah.
That's the name of it.
So it's your childhood was a lot like Data having no hair and putting peanut butter in his head?
I would say it's exactly like that.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
Now, were these ghosts your parents or just random spirits
Oh, just random. Just an amalgamation of the weirdest people.
raised you?
And they all hung out in your house?
Yeah. They just lived there with us and they had their own room. We had our own bedrooms and stuff.
Yeah,
Not, like regular house.
It's at first it's kind of scary that the only people talking to you when you're a baby are whispering all the time. But once you get past that, it's easy to ignore them and just go on with your day.
Yeah, they're like, you have a curfew at 11 p.m. I can't hear you. I'm not coming home. Okay, tonight, Mom.
The cool thing about whispering is everything sounds intimate. Like you could be a complete jerk monkey, but you sound really invested.
Elric, you
That's
are a
right.
jerk monkey.
If you ever tip to the parents, if you ever want your kids to do something, don't whisper it in an audible level.
You guys should know that. You're both parents.
Yep.
Now, actually, Elric's on daddy duty right now, taking care of his kids.
I see that kid in the corner.
There's no kids in this room. Oh.
Behind me. Oh, yeah.
Would you recommending him conjuring some spirits so he can get some rest for once? If the
Oh,
spirits
that's
would
such a
take
great
care?
idea.
Oh,
That's what you should do.
Any
Oh, actually, no. I have a genuine paranormal question because remember I told Tom McLaughlin who has electromagnetic theories, but I have a thing.
Wait.
Yeah, Tom McLaughlin has electromagnetic theories. They were pretty good, too.
You might not even be able to handle being in the same room with Tom McLaughlin.
I probably
He's pretty
could probably
intense.
faint.
we would just
Okay.
feel electrocuted. What would we feel like?
He's just got this pelvis thing. Just he's 60 something. He's got the pelvis thing. He's like a rocker.
He's like a total rock star.
But what I asked him, and
He's dry
you'll
humping
know
the air.
this because I can tell you'll know this.
Oh yeah, I will.
When I walk under streetlights,
Yes.
they turn off. The street lamps,
Turn off.
they'll often turn dark, and has been happening for years in my life. Not every time, but
Only when you're alone,
to the
though,
point.
right?
Yeah.
No.
It happens
It sometimes
whenever?
happens when, but
I got a question, Selena,
Always.
about this.
always when I'm alone. Like if I'm walking a long time on that walk, it'll happen I'll be directly the second I'm under it. Boom, goes dark. And after a while, I'm like, wow. And so happened in different countries too. It happened in New Zealand for a long time, and then it happened here.
Different countries.
Different countries, yeah, because I was on the run because I put all these keys under her house.
Yeah. We know.
So all I really want to know is how big a dick do I have to make for the Sasquatch? That's basically where I'm going with it. No,
There's
really
one called a
big.
king.
Okay,
It's
good.
called a king cobra.
I can't go over it. But do you think there's anything supernatural? Or is
Oh,
this
yeah.
like some sort of energy thing?
No, you're a wizard for sure.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
Wizard.
A wizard.
Full on wizard. I mean,
Adjunct
obviously
wizard.
you haven't explored your powers very well, but wizards don't do well with technology. So, they short out lights. If you have
alchemy.
I'm sure your television is broken all the time. I'm sure you have problems with your car when it's
I
messing
have to
up.
come fix his plumbing in his
check.
restaurant all the time.
Yeah.
Telling you.
That's more about Amityville.
Okay.
Yeah.
In movie terms. So I'm a wizard. See, if I know.
Yeah, so
was
that's
that
helpful.
simple.
You should hone those skills. Those are really
So
helpful
far,
sometimes.
we've learned
Do I get a badge? for
Rob's
that?
going to be taken out by a succubus.
Yeah.
I'm actually a serial killer,
Yeah.
and
And
you're
I'm a wizard. I got
Yeah.
so the best part of
Oh
that.
my gosh.
You at home, tune out. Run for your lives. These people are bad business.
And what is the
71
channel?
episodes, and that's what people are finally learning about us.
And what is the channel that you guys are usually? This show is always on.
KTBA,
What?
west of the Mississippi,
That's right.
and to the east, you can tune in on WNBC.
Cool. Well,
We're on the Super Creative Channel,
thanks for
podcast
joining
channel.
us. We'll see you guys next week. I hope you've learned a lot.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for having us.
Also
yeah.
on iTunes, look up Mystic Party
Yeah.
or the internet.
And that's I'm a wizard.
He's a wizard.
Congratulations.
Nightmare on Elm Street 3, folks. Check it out. Starring Elric.
Oh, yeah, I'm the little nerdy
He's
wizard.
gonna hop out of his wheelchair and cast some spells.
The wizard. Yeah, I like that. So you've been listening to The Mystic Party on Killer POV.
Oh,
There we go.
We tricked everybody.
We're really sorry about
very
all the
confusing.
confusion, but let's start over. We thought it'd be fun to just do a little bit of the Mystic Party because our guests are Brea and Zane Grant, the hosts of the Mystic Party, which is on iTunes and as well. It's on YouTube too.
It's on YouTube. What we do now is we make our guests dance with us at the end. And so we just loop like a 20 seconds of us dancing over and over again over the YouTube.
That's
over
kind of
us,
amazing.
like our voices.
Right on.
It's
Can
very
we
bizarre.
do that tonight at the end?
We can
we
absolutely
should.
do that.
I'd
Cool.
love to.
That's for
So
Instagram.
nothing you said was real. The two things I want to get back
no,
to.
you're a wizard.
Everything we said
I'm
is
a
real.
wizard, but are you really brother and sister?
We are.
That
Really?
much is true.
Do you really not know that?
Yeah, I've heard rumors, but I just don't buy it.
Do we not look like each other?
You look at each other longingly, and I just am assuming.
Whoa! Oh, we're also into incest. Does that make more sense?
Well, when you're raised by ghosts,
Do we not look like? Do we look the same?
You actually do.
Do we?
just
We
your
don't- I don't think we
eyeballs.
look
The
anything
eyeballs.
alike.
Your
your
Yeah.
eyeballs, like not around the eyes, but if you look right into the eyeballs.
Yeah, I have
Our
smoother
souls are the
skin around
same.
my eyes because
Yeah.
I'm younger.
No. Damn it.
How did you guys create this whole concept? Because it is different.
Different
Yeah,
from
yeah,
What we're
yeah.
doing. Like,
I feel like that's the way like my dad says things are different. Where I'm like, do you like it? And he's like, it's different. That's
different.
different. That's real different.
Right. Like when people critique your work here in Hollywood and they're like, yeah, it's interesting. Interesting.
It's not always a good sign.
good something to
No,
talk
it's not
about.
good. It's okay.
But,
wild and crazy stuff.
Well, to go back briefly before you talk about the history of the show, I mean, if you're listening to us and you're a horror fan, you probably know that Brea was in Halloween 2. Rob
was in
Zombie's
that.
Halloween 2.
Heroes.
She was on Heroes for a
wasn't
while.
that.
I double take the first time I
Dexter?
saw you come into Jump Cut because I really liked Heroes, up until it all went to hell, obviously, with the writer's strike. But I remember it had to double take to kind of, because you had different hair or something, right? Like
I do have different hair.
crazy.
I had
she
dreadlocks
crazy,
on
she had
the
crazy
show.
hair. But it was a cool character.
I was
thanks.
that robot in Rob Zombie's More Human Than the Human.
Oh, you're that guy?
Who's that guy?
I played that robot.
That's a good robot.
Zane is actually a very, very talented screenwriter as well. And him and Brea have written a couple of comic books together that were
That's
published.
true.
We Will Bury You, which is
So
a
true.
zombie comic set in the 40s?
20s.
20s, that's
I had to
it.
think about
That's okay. They're pretty much the same.
Yeah, I forgot.
During the
It's been a
Depression,
while.
it's right around the Depression time. Actually, that's when it's set.
And they've essentially, ever since they were young, I mean, they've like written music together, they've written comics together, they've always kind of collaborated on stuff. So.
Which is crazy because most siblings I know don't even want to hang out with each other for more than like an hour. So how do you guys work together?
Well, our podcast is exactly 1 hour long.
I think it's because I'm gonna answer that seriously. I think we grew up in. I know we grew up in a real small town in East Texas, like really small, and so the only other cool person in the town was Zane, and I feel like we were the only people who had things in common because we liked weird movies.
There was a Korean guy.
There was a Korean guy we were friends with that we liked a lot, but we didn't have many friends. And so when we were like, let's play punk rock music, there was we just played with each other. Like we didn't have
And
anybody.
the Korean guy.
Yeah, and the Korean guy, basically.
What happened to that Korean guy?
But when you live in a small town, it's like there's not many people who have stuff in common with you. So we kind of started doing stuff
And you guys
together.
watched a lot of, because obviously I know Zane very well, and we've talked about movies extensively.
How well do you know him?
Just well.
Have you
heard
seen each
that they
other's
had a
butts
first
or
date.
not?
yeah.
You guys had a first date in
Are
New
you
York.
guys
That
on
was
like
kind of weird.
Bigfoot level
we
yet?
Well, I guess we could talk about this. This is fun.
Yeah,
But
you guys had a first date. I want to
it's
hear
not.
about it.
No, what happened was I said it felt like a weird, awkward. Because what happened was I just moved here and I was going back to New York to see my folks, and Brea's like, you should hang out with my brother Zane because he still lives in New York and you guys are like totally similar and would get along. And it was so weird because I didn't know Zane at all. And here I am meeting him like I think in front of like St. Mark's Place,
Yeah.
like in front of the Continental. Some dude I'd never met, and it felt like an awkward first date. It was like,
I was excited. I had fun.
but I remember the issue being because you were vegan at the time. And it was
We had to
I
eat
was like,
falafel.
hey man, would you like to go get pizza?
pizza.
And
There's
you're
a
like,
really good pizza place right there beneath the Continental. One of the Rays is right there. It's
"Eh,
like I like that
Not as good as
one.
Ray's on 6th and 11th, which is no longer there.
No, I
But I
always did
suggested-
Rays on 23rd and 8th.
All right.
bold.
Well, I
the hell?
suggested pizza, but he was like, if I eat cheese, I'll die. So then we had
That's
to.
true.
Then I think I suggested burgers, and you're like, "No, I can't eat that."
No, I can't eat
And
that.
we
Well, I
eventually,
suggested pizza for tonight.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
And then
insane.
everyone got like total buzzkill. I was like,
wanted a
Mystic
Pizza
Party. I was so
Yeah.
excited. And then everyone's like, oh, we're going to die.
We don't eat cheese.
Right next to that really good race on 8th and 23rd is one of the best vegan restaurants in all of New York, Blossom.
Blossom.
Yeah.
Stick around, everybody. Elric's going to make fun of people in wheelchairs next.
Damn, ice bucket challenge. No, I'm on the side of the ice bucket.
Right.
Anyway.
What movie?
like to
What
make
movie
people
was playing
uncomfortable.
that Rob didn't want to see? Anybody know? Any fans of me and Rob's first date? Does
Give me
anybody
a
know?
year. Tell me what year and I'll get it.
I do actually remember this. You
It
totally.
was, what year was it? 2010?
I'm going to go Transformers.
It was at
something.
it was at IFC. I was like, Rob, do you want to go see this movie?
Was it directed by Stephen C. Miller?
I don't
Nope.
know.
He made enough. I was
Nope.
guessing.
No.
No, I
No,
don't.
it was that documentary. Is it a documentary? I don't remember.
It's-
Cropsy.
Yeah, it's like a
Cropsy.
weird. It's a weird.
Ah.
Isn't it about Long Island?
It's kind of like
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's about like
but I
a
just-
folk
you
tale
know,
on Long Island.
You're
It's
like
like,
kind
hanging
of.
out
see
with
it?
somebody for the first time. It's like, oh, let's go into a dark room and watch a movie and not talk for 2 hours.
That
sounds
Should
hot.
we like get to know each other? So I don't know.
Does sound like a first
sound
date.
like
It
it.
really
Yeah.
sounds like a first date.
So we
I
went-
really think we should
so-
talk and connect.
So we went up to 42nd Street and popped a couple quarters into a peep show booth and
There we go.
never saw him again.
And then the night got hotter.
Yeah.
And
It's
had
totally
his baby.
manly, I swear.
Fascinating.
But anyway,
Fascinating.
long story short, I was bringing that up because I know that Zane, we've talked about movies a lot, and I was just curious for both of you, being that you felt like the weird kids in Texas, was there like a little video store, or like how did you guys get movies? Because I know, Brea, you told me that you used to watch a lot of Argento stuff and a lot of horror stuff you would just watch with your brother.
We do watch horror movies a lot.
How did we get movies?
Yeah, how did, you know?
This is going to tell you how old we are.
2-day video. We
There
had
is a place called 2-Day Video.
2-day video in town, and
You
then
could rent them for 2 days at a time.
2 days at a time. That's why it's called 2-day
Two.
video.
What happened after? How bad were the penalties?
On the third day, Christ rose again.
And Blockbuster. And then I worked at a library, at a public library when I was in high school.
yeah.
And I would always get like Hitchcock movies out of there because they had like old movies. And I saw like, I'd get like lots of movies from the 50s out of there.
We actually had a pile of Psycho posters from that library, but I don't really understand why.
I took them one time.
But why did the library have a bunch of Psycho
The
posters?
library had some weird stuff, and I would always like just be like, no one's ever going to see this. And so I would just take it home because they had like all this like weird stuff in weird closets, and like it was just a bunch of old ladies and me working there. So those ladies were like never going through that stuff.
Do you
So
think
I
people
took
go
it.
to the libraries anymore?
I do.
I mean, I think libraries are
love
great.
it.
I just think
the
you must be
Burbank
done.
Library, you can
Oh,
go
yeah,
in there
it's
and I could go rent Quiet once tonight. I mean, like there's always, they have the new releases and they are always sitting on the shelves. And so it's like David Mine's answer to the demise of the video store because I fucking
nice.
hate Redbox because I hate having to watch the people in front of me, like, you know, spend 20 minutes trying to pick out what movie they want. So we go to the Burbank Library.
That's
and
great.
they're free.
And it's free.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's
All you
free.
need is a library card.
And yeah, it's I used to go to like when I moved to LA, which was a while ago now, but like 8 years ago, I was like broke, really super broke. So I'd get all my books and everything there. I don't do it as much anymore, but I should because it's free and you don't have to. Yeah, and then it's like really quiet in there. Also, I used to use the internet there when I first moved to LA because I didn't have an internet connection.
I remember those days.
Yep.
Yep, people
Yeah.
still go there.
And then when we moved to Austin for school,
Mm-hmm.
we would go to I Love Video.
Oh yeah, I Love Video in Austin. It's a really good.
That place is really cool.
Still
Yeah.
there?
Yeah,
Yep.
it's still there. It's still like one of those independent, like cool video places.
It's
There's that,
awesome.
and there's like Vulcan Video, and there's a couple other good.
I've heard of that one.
Yeah, there's a
Yeah,
couple
Vulcan's
good
good.
video stores in Austin that were like kind of
Yeah,
amazing.
Austin's like a real place, though, right?
Austin is
We-
not
we-
a made up place.
It's a real place.
Yeah.
Keep
we,
Austin.
we grew up in a real place.
Marshall, Texas.
That doesn't sound
Marshall.
Like
I know.
Yeah.
He may not be. May not be real.
You know who grew up near there? Matthew McConaughey.
True.
20 minutes away.
20 minutes away from our
You know who
hometown.
else? Sissy Spacek.
Yeah.
Oh, she now
Badlands.
lives really close to me in middle of nowhere, Virginia.
Really?
Yeah, she's now
Eventually.
in Virginia.
Oh, weird.
So
Wait,
she-
you don't live in Virginia?
Yeah, I do.
You live in Virginia?
This
Not
feels like
now.
6
I mean,
degrees
oh,
of Texas.
I've lived in LA for the past 5 years, and then
okay.
before that, I lived in New York for like a decade.
But you're from
before that,
Virginia.
I was from Virginia,
Should have known.
Appalachia.
I should have known.
Appalachia. Yeah,
Really?
like little like mountains and shit.
I should have known
Barefoot.
that. Should have known that.
I listened to your podcast. I always wish there was a quiz like 6 degrees of. Because I went to Doug Benson Loves Movies. Doug Loves Movies yesterday.
Yes.
Those quizzes, they make me really nervous, but I enjoy listening to them.
What are you talking about?
Quizzes to each. I'm
So explain and we'll
unfamiliar.
do one. Tell us how to do it and we'll do one.
Oh God, he does one that's like, it's a Leonard Maltin game.
Yeah.
And it's like, name that movie, and you have to bid on it. So I'll say like 8, and then you'll give me 8 names of actors who are in the movie. And then or if Brea's like, I can do it in 6, then she gets to go first. Or then say Rob says, I can name it. Then he just tells you the year, and I think he gives you a little description.
He usually gives you a quote, like what
Yeah,
Leonard
that's what it
Maltin
is.
said
What's
about
the game
it.
that you
That's
came
what
up
it
with?
is.
I like that game.
The game that, well, it's what Dave and I always do in the car, like whenever we're on long car trips. We'll come up with like a really small subgenre, like movies set on boats go. And then we just have to go back and forth
that's
good.
Until you run out.
until you run out.
I heard him do that one time with Eddie Murphy movies.
That's good.
Yeah.
I liked that
It's
a
a
lot.
lot of Eddie Murphy movies.
Yeah. But
I
anyways,
like games.
I'm not trying to come in and
like
run
fun.
your
Great. Fun's
podcast,
good.
but I always think like, wow, these people know so much about movies.
We should.
I wish.
They should call each other out more.
Yeah, they should. They do that all the time anyway.
So you've listened to the show before.
Yeah, a lot of times.
What have you picked up about the show? We don't listen from the outside.
I listen.
Do you not listen to your own show?
Listens. I can't listen to my own
What if you're
voice.
terrible?
It's one of those things. If I'm terrible, I assume that they'd kick me off the show. Or
Would
that,
they?
people
Would
would be
they?
like, God, get rid of that girl. But yeah, I think a lot of people have that problem where you can't really listen to yourself.
I sound like
Yeah.
high-pitched Tom Selleck. Like that's how I view my voice.
You should get
in my
Tom
head.
Selleck in here sometime and then turn up his tone.
Oh, yeah, that's
That'd be
good.
nice.
Yeah.
That's
Actually,
really gonna do.
I'm not going to kid. I think when I was like 8 years old, I think I was watching an episode of Magnum PI, and it's the only time I ever prayed to God. And I prayed to God, and I said, "Dear God, I wish that there would be no spiders in this house, and that I'd grow up to look like Magnum PI."
Oh, and look what
I had to pray
happened.
to, yeah, exactly.
Look what you
There's
got.
no
Were there no
spiders in the
spiders?
house. That's about it. And I have a Hawaiian shirt.
Oh, Lordy.
Anyway, so what'd you pick up about the show? Anything?
Oh, what
any
did I pick up?
insights?
I like. What
Yeah,
do you mean?
Rick, make it about us instead of them.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
way to go.
curious. He's
Like, do
talking
you have
about-
it? Like, you want advice for your show?
Yeah, what do you think what should we do more of? How can we never get people
What should
telling
you
us
do
about
more of?
improvements on
It's
the
always
show?
easier to come up with critiques of stuff.
I can always ask you at the end of the show. We can go back. We can circle back if you like.
Nah, I really like the ones. I think the episodes I like the most. I don't think you could plan this kind of thing, but like when like Charlie Band was on here.
Yeah.
And he was just. I had no idea that like that guy had this history. I just thought like, oh yeah, this guy's like puppet. He's like a puppet bong. He's an evil, he's an evil bastard puppet bong.
Well, we get to know people sometimes at the end of their careers because of when we're alive, and then you look back under and you're like, oh my god.
But
like
yeah.
Mick Garris was like that for me. I just think of Mick Garris as his films. And then once he looked under the hood, there's all this stuff before he started making films that was really interesting.
Yeah.
But, my Charlie Band thing for this week, I watched Freeway 2 Confessions of a Trick Baby last night. That's a full moon film.
Really?
I
Full
kid
moon?
you not. Yeah,
Holy
at least the
smokes.
VHS I had, it had full moon logo on it, and they ran all their full moon promos beforehand. Buy this Puppet
Vince
Master
and
doll.
Gallo probably owe Charlie Band money. Holding it for one last favor. Come on, Gallo. I got you under contract.
Finally, he gets a taste of it.
Wow.
Yeah, that one. I was like the Project Greenlight one. There's just these things that are kind of revelatory about film careers that get in depth in a way that I really enjoy because, short of reading a biography about which there aren't that many of these people, or if any, or a Wikipedia thing, it's like, yeah, okay, you can look on Wikipedia and it's like Charlie Band, like Empire, blah, blah, blah. But you don't really get the sense of like, wow, like there was this huge studio and they were doing all this crazy stuff.
And some of them speak honestly. Not
Yeah.
everyone. I can't think of
everyone's
any
been
show.
pretty honest.
I think
Yeah.
maybe early on there might have been a couple people that were maybe a little more guarded, but in general,
Oh, and that makes me question our interview skills more
maybe,
than
yeah. But some people just will have come in with some sort of protection. Like
Yeah, I think there's some people who just want to.
some people, there's some sort of secret, because sometimes we're dealing with things about money. I mean,
what,
but Charlie Band was like,
what was
laid it out,
what was
yeah.
Bill Lustig's secret? I didn't listen to that one.
Actually,
Bill, that's
Bill
my
was probably the
favorite
best.
episode.
Bill, yeah,
A lot of us
Bill
think
are
that
my
might have been the
favorite.
best
Just so you know,
one.
Zane and Bill are like best friends.
Yeah.
Not a joke.
He did come to my wedding
He did come
in
to the
Washington,
wedding.
D.C.
Yeah.
And I do have a picture of me and him and my wife on the Exorcist stairs that he keeps asking me for, but I never give to him. I don't know why I don't give it to him.
His was really interesting. I guess he just has like a kind of a unique. Well, there aren't many filmmaker distributors too.
Yeah, that's interesting.
But I loved listening to him because he was like shooting in New York when it was like a run and gun thing.
Yeah, he gave me a tour of the Maniac Cop locations one time.
Wow. Oh, wow.
Yeah, that's
cool.
pretty cool.
But yeah, his secret was about you.
Oh, good.
And about what happened on those exorcist stairs. And that's
What happened? The German.
yeah. No, you mentioned the German. That German was crazy. That
bastard.
German. Yeah, the stories Bill told us about you.
That's good.
Well, thanks for coming on the show to tell us about our show.
Oh, you're welcome.
It was a pleasure.
Take us, yeah.
I'll tell you all the bad stuff afterwards.
So, Brea, that one episode of Heroes, I want to talk about that again because it was really cool.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
All right, no, legitimately, let's get back on track.
Okay.
Paranormal investigators.
Well, I mean, you guys have collaborated on several things over the years. You kind of always come back to it. So, you guys could have done any kind of podcast, legitimately. So why did I mean? And I think what you guys do is really fun. I like the improv nature of it. Like, I've been on Brian Collins, other people that have been on this show have been on their show.
I heard a bit of the Turek one, but I threw my headphones down and shattered them because I was like, Turek, he has a competing horror podcast on this very network.
Competing?
No, he's not. He's
Bastard.
We've done crossovers. Turek's good.
We do crossover.
I like the Turek episode.
I like the crossover.
nice.
This is technically a crossover.
This is a
I
crossover.
can't remember what Ryan's problem was. Oh, he found a haunted Jack in the Box.
He got a Jack in the
Oh,
Box.
right.
Ghost stabs.
Yeah, but
Brian-
then a bunch of good stuff kept happening to him instead of bad stuff.
Right. And Brian Collins was trying to stop a ghost from scaring him because...
Oh no,
or he
this
wanted-
ghost was trying to scare him, but he was like so
annoyed.
he's just annoyed because he's seen too many horror movies, so he's jaded.
Right.
Do you guys ever take phone calls from viewers? Because that would be cool. Like
We
people
do.
listening.
We just started doing it. We
think that'd
actually,
be really rad.
Yeah, 864-MYSTIC-4. Give us a call.
You can call and leave a message. You can leave a message. You can't call
you
live.
can't call live.
Yeah.
But if you could crack that, I think that's where the big bucks are. You guys
Yeah.
live.
The big bucks.
Big bucks.
Someone's gonna call in and give us
Big
money.
bucks.
Yeah, Ghostbusters became big.
I saw this picture on the internet of this Haitian rabbit baby human,
Okay.
and it was dead. And the Haitian in the religion, they thought that it was a buck, which is a kind of some sort of demon that has it's like a human with a rabbit head. But then there was this long explanatory article about how it was actually a baby that was deformed that the Haitians killed, and I thought that was pretty disturbing.
What does that have to do with what we're talking about?
He said the word buck.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I gotcha.
Anyways,
You're not really adjunct to anything, right?
I am. I
Are you for real adjunct?
I've taught both at University of Leipzig. I've taught international politics.
Okay. All right. That's okay then. I was just getting really worried.
At University of Arizona.
I didn't want a false representation
Two
in
sides.
case anyone turns to
Zane
you
and
for
I,
serious
Zane and
advice.
I both have master's degrees. Not a joke. Zane has 2.
I have
Isn't
2.
that- Do you have 2?
2.
Yeah.
Two's a
right
good place
on.
to
Never
stop.
met another one.
I'm halfway through the PhD as well.
Oh, wow.
It's like a
Me too,
slog.
forever.
Yeah, it's going to take me forever.
No, forever. I'm never going to go back.
What's your
Literature.
PhD going to be in?
Film,
Oh, that's great.
Nuns.
eventually.
Non-film.
I'm going to tell you how we started Mystic Party.
Hey, there we
No.
go.
I like getting back on track. This is my entire job.
I
on
want
the
to talk
show.
about Nuns on the Run.
No, more rabid babies.
More educational.
please.
I love Brea's like
Asian
the
babies.
equivalent of me on this show
It's
for her
true.
show.
I have
she
to, like,
loves
keep
to try to
staying
get
on
everything
track.
back on track.
What are you trying to
which
say?
I try to do too.
Did you know the word heroes has
You
the
were
word
like-
Oreos in it?
You were like, you were the Elric
I like
of Mystic Party.
Oreos in it.
Yeah, mix up the letters. It's a message.
If you put O twice,
That's right.
Orheos. It has Orheos.
Okay, so how did the show start?
I don't know. That's it. We actually don't going to answer that.
What's the question?
We want to start a podcast, and then Zane wanted to do a podcast where we just got people to come on to pretend they were minor characters from X-Files episodes. So it was just like random small storylines. But I was like, no one's going to understand that. A. B. It's going to be really confusing for the people having to do it. We're going to have to convince people okay, here's your storyline. So we got a little bit more loose with it, basically.
Loosey goosey.
But we still tell people if you want to pick a X-Files character, it's a really easy way to find a character for your show. 'Cause people have to come up with their own problems. We help them a little bit, but as Rob can attest to,
If you want to be one of those nurses in that hospital where the old man kept leaving his body to sexually assault them. Do you remember that episode?
I do.
That was
I
disturbing.
Yeah.
to assault
watches
the
all
nurses.
That was probably about season 5 or 6. I'm guessing.
Something like
Yeah.
that. I don't remember.
Robert Patrick time.
No, it was pre-Robert Patrick.
Oh, good.
I didn't like Robert Patrick time. Dog it. I kind of.
I liked him at the time.
Yeah, I didn't hate him. I didn't like his partner. Why can't I remember her name now? Agent.
Deanna Troy.
Wrong show.
He just crossed the stream. one time too many.
Yeah, when they asked me on, Zane was just like, I was like, I don't know how to come up with a psychic problem. And
that's what everyone says.
He's like, just think of a movie you like a lot, and we're just gonna rip off that. We're not rip off. We're gonna rip on that. So I chose Larry Fessenden Habit.
Oh,
I was like, oh, that's easy. I'll just do Habit.
It was great.
So why paranormal investigators? Is that something you guys grew up digging, or just fun? I mean, you're an actor, right? So is it just fun role playing?
Yeah, it's kind of fun role playing. I'm an actor. Zane's an improviser. Zane's on several improv teams at the Upright Citizens Brigade and elsewhere. And my big thing was I didn't want to do. This is like a stupid actor thing, but I didn't want to have a show where I just like interviewed people or we just talked to people because I actually don't think I'm very good at that. And I just didn't really want to do that. I wanted to be acting,
right?
Which is kind of
makes sense. Yeah.
Well, sort of. It kind of doesn't make any sense at all. But then we came with the idea that
wait. It does make sense.
Okay. Fine. So we just wanted to do a thing where we played a role essentially, and so we got to play and improvise and stuff. And I've done some improv. Zane does a lot, so it was kind of a fun.
You guys ever break character in the show and go into normal? Okay. Have you ever gone all the way? Have you ever stayed in the whole way, like, and you had a guest who was able to, like, from start to end, you guys were just in that world?
Well, we never deny. We don't ever break character in the sense, like, we never say, like, oh, yeah, we're just messing around. That's not real. Everything's always real to us. Morgan Peter Brown, I don't know if you heard that episode.
Yeah, that was a great one. Morgan Peter Brown came on because his problem was that everyone thinks he looks like a serial killer.
Yeah,
that is hilarious.
Yeah, it was a good one. That was it was a good premise.
And we actually, I was like, yeah, you're on something about Killer POV. And he's like, yeah, those are our friends. I was like, well, they're our biggest enemies.
Oh, yeah, we did. We called you guys out. We did.
And he got all nervous.
And he got really nervous. Like, you guys are some kind of mafia or something.
And we were
they
really
know the show is a
He's one of my best friends. I love that guy.
Well, he took up for you. Like we were talking, like we were being mean to you.
There
was somebody else. Yeah, we talked smack on that. There's another one we talked smack on, and then someone felt really defensive, and I was like, it's just kidding. It's a joke.
It's characters.
I feel like Ryan Turk actually got kind of annoyed because I kept going, I can name 50 cult films you've never heard of. And he was just like, name one. And I was like, Manfest. Manfest Lagoon. And he was like, that's not a real movie. And I was just like, is it? And then he was like, every time I do it, he was.
Well, actually, I like
and what's fun is we get to be. Sometimes we're like really antagonizing. Sometimes we're not. Sometimes we're just super duper nice to people, and I don't know why those people were really nice to, and some we're just like, whatever, your problem's dumb, and like have to like tease them the whole time.
I'll give you $100 if you can get Brad Misk on your show.
That'd be amazing.
He lives in Chicago, right?
Just phone it in, right?
He gave me advice one time on my TMJ.
What's that?
On your TMJ?
TMJ.
What's that?
your jaw disorder?
Yeah. Somebody was like, call him. He knows a lot about it. And I was like, oh, okay. So I called him.
You cold called him about TMJ?
Yeah, he was really nice.
I think I knew that.
Yeah.
I like that you cold called Brad Miska about TMJ.
He's really nice about anything non-movie related. I think in general, as a person, he's just a totally nice person. Yeah, we talk about basketball, and I find him totally nice. But I always hear
even if it is movie related.
I don't know.
Yeah.
If you just follow the Twitter, you would.
If it's movie related, he automatically just disagrees with you.
Yeah,
you're like, my favorite movie is, and he's like, shut up.
He's like, no, it's man, whatever you said.
It's Manifest the Bay.
I enjoyed immensely when I was, because if you listen to their show, they have some fun, like, callers come in, they have some musical stuff and quizzes and all that. But actually, the episode I was on,
can we do a quiz?
Zane's wife was on as well, and they started getting into it. Which I
that is
really
a theme of the show. Zane and his wife like to
breaking character.
Are you still married? You're married right now?
Yeah.
Still married.
Oh, still married. And that's the Bill Lustig wedding?
Yeah.
The German?
Same wedding.
On the steps?
The German.
The secret Bill told us?
The German.
Kiki, Zane's wife, does our paranormal news stories at the top of the show where she reads them.
Kiki the news girl.
What is this quiz that you're telling us?
Yes.
We do a paranormal. No, because I do it like I come up with it based on
prep. We do
a lot of prep on our show. It's a lot of pre-production.
If you answer the questions correctly, get more than, I think it's 2 out of 3. If you get them right, then they will give you their advice for free.
For free.
Oh,
otherwise, we're really expensive.
I got 2 out of 3, so I got free advice.
What'd you get wrong? And have you researched it since?
I argued because I can't remember specifically, but brought up something about a goat man.
Yeah, it was a goat man.
Oh yeah,
But
your
I
quiz was
confused
goat
it
man.
with the goat man from Rome, and they were talking
like
about
a satyr.
totally different goat man. Yeah.
Like a
Half man,
satyr,
half
but
goat.
different.
I can't remember
Not a
that quiz
satyr.
at all.
A different
It's always a
long ago.
paranormal quiz. A lot of times it's about some sort of like cryptid. So it's like
Okay.
it's some like, oh, we're gonna do a quiz about a chupacabra or something, you know.
You learn a lot from our show. Educational.
It's very educational, you know, and it's also full of lies. So it's really confusing.
It's
Lots of lies.
disinformation.
Yeah.
Paranormal investigator movies or
Yes.
something
Yeah,
that we were
let's
talking
do it.
about. We both watched Lake Mungo. Ever seen it?
Oh, I saw that.
No?
Wait, is it Australian
Yeah,
or something?
Australia. About the drowned girl.
Yeah, about the drowned girl. That was a really
A lot
good
of people
movie.
liked it, and they kept telling us to watch it, and we liked it. We just,
Yeah,
but a lot of people loved it.
Oh, you know what? It was one of those that I was watching. It was like a Netflix flip through. I was like, okay. And so I knew nothing about it, which made it probably way better.
Yeah.
I think it's like one of those, if you know too much, if someone's like, it's great, then you're not going to like
This
it.
one had been built up like mad for me,
yeah.
and everybody kept saying, "Oh, you're gonna love it, you're gonna love it." And then I finally watched it, and I was like, "It's okay."
Yeah.
But yeah, I felt like like I let people down because they were so like Morgan Peter Brown was like, I showed this to my like college film club, and I'm
Wow.
like, it was okay.
It was
Serial
creepy. I thought it was creepy.
Damn creepy serial killer. Face and mother couldn't love it.
Oh, he defended
Well,
you.
that was a good one. That's,
The question being, why are they so popular in America? I was looking over this like as a subgenre.
Oh, I've researched this. Yeah.
But it is. It's a very American subgenre. There's British films. There's Japanese
Paranormal
films.
investigators.
Paranormal investigators. And like I wondered if it ties into something to do with like I don't know how America was kind of born out of not skepticism, but like science is the advance and ideas like this, because there is a lot. I mean, it's one of the most, when I looked over all the titles, I realized it's actually one of the bigger subgenres that almost any paranormal film in America has investigator characters.
That's true.
oh, that's true.
Which I was surprised by in a sense, and I don't know why that is. Whereas other countries, it doesn't seem to. It seems like other countries, like Italy and stuff, are just like, oh yeah, because devil's real.
But could it be because
no.
we like sort of we kind of like uphold the like loner detective kind of like film noir like kind
Actually,
of
that's a good idea, yeah, the
comes
film
in
noir
and
character,
like
yeah.
in like that's such an American thing. Although giallo movies, but I guess that's a
Yeah,
different-
Giallo's always have
you
like
think
some sort of
skepticism-
amateur detective in them.
yeah, that's
Because Americans
true.
in the back, there's a time where everyone's thinking about being like, Exorcist comes out and all the Catholics are scared. But I feel like
Yeah.
it's a country born in a little bit of skepticism, like people who don't necessarily lead with belief, but then want to believe. Like I think America's a country, like as a kind of an outsider, I always feel like Americans want to believe, but
Yeah.
they're skeptical.
Well, as a person
Unlike
with an
some other
American
countries.
studies master's degree, I totally agree with you.
Yeah, it's-
no, I mean, I agree. I think we do this like especially because it's like we are a country that kind of pretends to be based on religion, but obviously it's not so much religion as it is like religious doctrine. And so, yeah, it's like this mixture between like we're very logical, but we also have this whole religious doctrine thing that we go along with. So that makes it confusing when you have someone coming in trying to prove or disprove something. We just have such a big history of like, I mean, just the Salem witch trials alone,
Yeah, that's
you
a
know,
big
like
event.
it's like we have a lot of history of like, oh, these mystical things happen, the Roanoke colony, and like all these things that we think of as like a mystical part of our history, sort
And
of.
every town across America has like ghost tours.
Yes.
And it's like it's built into the American theme work. And I don't know if it's like that in other countries.
Considering how
I don't
young
think-
America is too, that's really crazy to think
Well,
about.
I think Italy, obviously, Italy and Japan and countries that have a. Japan has a mythology with
Yeah.
close
then
connections with
spirits
ghost
are
stories and
naturally,
spirits.
they
Exactly, it's less
occur.
modern. And Italy, I think it's a Catholicism for sure, and the
Yeah,
devil
that's
and
true.
God. But
Dylan Dog.
yeah, which is the finest version of that story. Don't watch Cemetery Man, that garbage.
Well, no, but there was a comic that's really good.
Oh, yeah,
it is
I've
a
heard
good
that.
one.
I've
it's
heard
the
that.
original
comic.
comic. It's interesting. I think the reason paranormal, some of these shows and just movies in general are popular because, like you said, people want to believe in the
Something more.
in the fantastic and
Right.
something more, and at the same time, people have a desire for an explanation. They need things explained to them. So I feel like having an investigator kind of demyth something gives them both. They get to believe in the in the supernatural, the paranormal, and then somebody proves it wrong or can't prove it at all. You know what I mean? I think that's what people's fascination about it is they kind of get both. They
Yeah,
get
I
an
agree.
explanation and
Yeah.
And some hope.
And I think we also, in America, we love experts. Like, that's such
That's true. That is the American way.
You know, like, we're like, how do you raise a baby? Ask Dr. Spock. How do I have a marriage? Like you, ask Dr. Phil. Like, we have, like, these experts on
and
things.
And yet that's changing because of Twitter. Like, it really is because of Twitter.
That
like,
is
now
interesting.
everyone with a blog can be faux experts. Right. But you're right. America was really built on, like, labels. Like, you're an alcoholic. You're depressed. You're fat. Like, it's always... A lot of countries don't have that. Like, I grew up in a place where I'd never even probably heard the terms things like obese or depression, or people have those same problems probably, but they're not labeled in the same way. And also people aren't in therapy. So whether this is good or bad, I don't even know. But I do think it creates a very different model.
Yeah.
You know?
I heard a story today about how in America, when you're schizophrenic, you hear voices that usually say like, "Are you what? You think you can cross that street? You can't cross that street. You're an idiot. You can't cross the street." But if you go to other countries... Same problem, same schizophrenia.
Different accent.
Different language. No, in, oh my gosh, I'm going to butcher this, but it was like in India or a place like that.
Probably Helsinki.
It was more likely, in India, you were more likely to just hear a relative who also maybe be bossing you around. And then there was another country that a country in Africa. I think it's Nigeria. I can't tell you. But, and they would hear voices from gods. And that was actually considered a blessing. It was like, if you think
America,
about
it's about being the individual.
It's about being the individual. You're alone. You're hearing these voices, and they're mean to you. And whereas, like in another country, it was kind of a blessing, and it was a god. It was gods talking to you. So, like, what a wonderful thing that the gods are telling you how wonderful you are. So, just like how cultural ways can manifest itself in like your identity, but also in just like in our neuroses.
Right.
But looking over my list, I do have a lot of Spanish paranormal investigation films.
Oh, cool. Because I don't have any.
Yeah, I do.
What do you have?
Weird. Let's see here. I've got The Orphanage.
Oh, that's good.
Did they investigate on that one?
Yeah.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
I like that movie a lot. It's been a while since
I can't remember
the whole thing is the investigation, isn't it? The whole thing is then they keep going back.
Yeah. I've got The Baby's Room, which I keep telling these guys to watch, and they haven't. The Nameless, which was based off a Ramsey Campbell novel, but it was made by a Spanish filmmaker.
What's this guy's other movie about the priest?
Alex de Iglesias. He's got a couple, but the one about the priest, I think, is Day of the Beast.
Oh, yeah, I like that movie.
Yeah, it's a really good one. So I've got a couple. Is there anything else on here?
Yeah, anything with... But the difference tends to
Devil's
be...
Backbone.
Those films don't tend to be leading with the skeptic trying to prove or disprove. They tend to lead with the religious figure, whether it's exorcism. I was looking over a list of movies and I found myself far less drawn to the religiously motivated investigations than I do the ones where they're skeptics. I like Poltergeist. I love the investigation scenes of that. The Entity is probably my favorite of those kind of movies. Yeah, even though the first half is much better than the second, where it's just horror. The second half's like these scientists, but it feels so real. It's like these guys from USC come up and they're like, "All right, we're going to put cameras up and we'll see what we see." And if I don't know, there's something about leading with the skeptic that makes it far scarier to me when a skeptic's proven wrong or has to like deal with how they're.
I'm actually glad you brought both of those up because I think Tangina, aka Zelda Rubinstein from Poltergeist, has got to be like the quintessential paranormal investigator in a horror movie. And a part of it is because she just seems so otherworldly herself.
That's the lady who goes, Carol Ann.
That's the one. That's her. I mean, she just she seems like she, you know.
Well, I mean, she's part of. I think there's like the core beginners are like.
He's in the corner laughing his ass off.
Poltergeist 2.
Hey,
she just says it so many times.
We're all fans of 3.
She just like it's like who was like now. Let me get a word count on how many times she says Carol Ann.
You know, I love her intro. Actually, in Poltergeist 3, I don't know. It's like 10 minutes.
Is that the one
movie
where she's on the plane and then she goes, "He's found her. He's
something like
found
that.
her."
I thought she was at like dinner, like having coffee or something at a cafe, and she's like,
"That's it.
Oh my God, Carol Ann needs me."
That's it. And
like,
then she gets on the plane and she's
know.
on the plane, like muttering to herself, like, "Lead him away," or something like that.
Is that the one in the apartment building?
Yeah, the complex. Yeah.
We're kind of
3?
fans of that one.
I like that one.
Yeah,
you
like that one?
There's some good in-camera tricks.
We all
in that
like 3.
Yeah.
That's the one good bad film that we all represent.
Agree on.
Interesting.
The only one? You guys agree?
Probably the only one we agree. Actually, probably.
Yeah.
We have a
tend to
lot of
differ
disagreements
quite a
on it,
bit.
especially on those kind of poorer films.
I laughed my ass off when I saw that.
Did you call it a
movie.
poorer film?
Poorer.
That's funny.
But no, like Ghostbusters, Scooby-Doo, Mulder, X-Files. They're like, the classic tropes. And I think Scooby-Doo is obviously a big one for our generation because it was our way of kind of like, they debunk things. They're debunkers. They're classic debunkers.
Never even thought of
there
that.
was never a truly supernatural story in that whole show.
Is that true?
Which is kind of interesting. No, I don't think so. Not in the cartoon. Not in the Hanna-Barbera.
Not in the original.
No, I don't think so. In Scrappy-Doo, I don't know. Once we get into Scrappy Land...
and like pup named Scooby-Doo, there was like
That was a
questionable
good one.
stuff.
That was a good
wow.
one.
But that Hanna-Barbera stuff was fascinating because clearly that is made by people then who have almost an agenda about the supernatural by saying it's not real kids.
Yeah,
like,
that's
this
true.
is a way of, unlike Ghoulies, which scared the shit out of all the kids watching the promo. These were almost in a way a safe place to play.
Yeah,
I
totally.
think. I love Scooby-Doo. That was my gateway.
I didn't even think of that, but I'm glad you brought it up because there's an artist that his
so
name
fun.
is Travis
Love that.
Falligant. In the last couple of weeks,
So cool.
he's really made a name for himself. I actually literally just bought a bunch of prints from him, like Teen Wolf and 80s movie stuff. But he keeps doing all these Scooby-Doo prints, but putting horror icons in them.
Oh, cool.
So it's like
It's like an animation cell, so it looks perfect, old school.
Perfect. So it's like
Hanna-Barbera.
Ghostface from Scream, like chasing the kids from
Chucky.
Scooby-Doo.
That's awesome.
That's fun.
Chucky. There's one
Curtains
evil
today. I saw
It was
Curtains. That was
Curtains,
pretty
which
funny.
was really obscure.
Oh, wow.
They're really cool. They look
The
so...
Freddy one's great. Michael Myers. They've done
And
them
he
all.
draws the characters to look just like a Hanna-Barbera cartoon,
mean,
so
That's
they don't
cool.
look...
It gets me excited because I feel like, oh my god, I've never seen that Scooby-Doo with Freddy Krueger.
Wouldn't that be
I
cool
kinda
if they
wanna
could make the
find
show
that.
again like that?
Yeah.
I would be scared
They're
of that
pretty
one.
amazing. So kudos to him.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But do you guys like I guess I'm curious about the religious versus the skeptic ones. Like, what do you guys think? Because the religious ones, I think, must work, but the more and more we kind of, as a society, go away from religion, it must get, I don't know, like, and the more I see a priest yelling at somebody, the less nowadays, I don't think that can work for me ever again. I think The Exorcist still works just because it feels very real, the emotion, but I look at some of them now and they come out and I'm just like, are there any priests left?
No,
Like,
I-
where are all
How
these
do you
people?
call
I don't know
these
any
priests
priests. I don't know any.
Are they? Do you even train them in exorcisms anymore? I mean, who knows?
I don't even know.
I
I mean,
don't-
is
I
the devil
definitely
inside
don't.
like realistic? Maybe.
I don't think so.
There are priests who specialize in exorcisms, but it's like
Hard to
under-
get permission, right?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's
gotta
not
fax.
totally approved, and
Hasn't that been something that's kind of been accepted by the most recent pope or something like that? I thought I read
Exorcism?
Yeah, I thought
Exorcisms?
because usually it's one of those, like, especially in the movies, they're always like, oh, the Catholic Church can't recognize that.
That was in possession of Michael King. That's like one of the huge plot points. is,
But I
you
could
know,
have sworn I read an article not too long ago where the new pope, who seems to be kind of awesome.
I don't know.
Yeah,
he's
he's
kind of
into
like a
everything.
disco dancing
That's right.
rock
We could do
star.
exorcism.
So yeah, he's pretty down with everything.
Well, who are some of our favorite characters from like paranormal investigator characters? I mean, you mentioned Ghostbusters, which seems
Ghostbusters
to me
is
to
a
be
good
kind
one.
of the obvious one.
I really liked 1408. That was one of my favorite like paranormal investigator ones because in that he was doing something that I've always wanted to do, where you travel from haunted location to haunted location, debunking it.
Have you
That's
met any of
interesting.
these real people around the table? Have you guys met real, whether parapsychologists or ghost tour guides? Have you met many
I've met
people?
tons of them,
Oh,
especially.
Brea
with-
has a story.
What?
That exorcist girl you were on a panel with.
Oh yeah, I was on a panel with a girl who is an exorcist. I forgot about that. And she also would sense like entities in in people.
She performed them, or what was her story?
Yeah, you probably know her.
Okay.
Her name's R.H.
R.H. Stein.
I don't.
R.L.'s daughter.
R.H. Millihoff?
Stavis. R.L.
Not
I'm
Leatherface.
saying the wrong
Weirdo.
initials and I feel really bad about that. I can't remember what it is.
Well, she'll haunt you later.
But did it
Anyway,
feel
she
legit?
she is a real live. That's what she does. She does exorcisms, and then she also like helps you get like entities out of your body. And so I was like, how many people have entities? And then you get out and run, and she was like 90% of the population. And I was like, what?
90%.
Like, and then of course my next question was like, me? But then I was too scared to ask.
I think that's like a
Wait, what panel?
Scientology ploy.
Well, it was just a panel about. It was called "What Scares You." It was that like Stanley's kamikaze thing?
Okay.
So I was just on there with like other horror people, like filmmakers and stuff. But she does comics, and then she also, I guess, she organized it.
Okay.
And so
Wow.
she was on there for
Most
that.
horror people, I mean, most people make films. They're all like the biggest scaredy cats.
And also,
You know,
the
most
big,
of
I
us
think they're
are
the
the ones
biggest
who are most scared of the
skeptics
dark.
too.
Yeah.
I think
maybe, yeah.
the biggest skeptics.
Yeah.
I think
that's
like
I would definitely
I
think
mean,
so.
it's really rare. I think that you meet horror. You eat what? That you eat
Zane is
horror
making
people.
faces.
that you meet horror people that are actually like know about.
Who here believes in ghosts, really?
Well, that's what I'm getting to. Like, and do you even want it? Are you too scared to admit whether you believe or not? I've always had the feeling if I say, "Oh yeah, I believe in ghosts," that the next minute I'm going to start seeing all this shit.
You're welcome.
That's paranoid. That's really paranoid.
I've grown up my whole life thinking that
If
way.
I don't believe in a skeleton man, he might appear behind me with a sword.
99% of the time, I never do. But then there's always like, that night I'm by myself and holy shit, I didn't open that door. And then I'm like, I'm a little bit more suggestible then.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Although I'm more scared of like home invasion type movie scenarios than I am of like ghost scenarios.
I'm not all scared about real life stuff.
Really?
Well, real life
I'm constantly scared of real life.
No, I'm only scared of what I don't know.
Yeah,
well,
the ghost stuff doesn't dawn on me much.
But what about aliens? Do you guys believe in aliens?
I do, but I don't believe that they're like targeting us or going to come hang out in my house for a day.
And I believe they're
like
humans
that.
from the future who have built time travel machines that come back. They can't be caught because otherwise they'll undo the chain.
Elric and I argued
drunk
over
I have a
this
story
for
about
like
that.
hours on
For
Friday.
real, I believe that.
You have a time travel story.
No, I was a few weeks ago, I was driving Stuart Gordon to the airport.
Boom.
Nice name drop.
Name drop.
Yeah, but the thing is, like, he said exactly, he was like, I think maybe aliens are just time travels from the future.
They're just us.
And he had all
we
these
can't get
reasons.
caught.
But I think he was kind of joking.
I feel like aliens could be caught and then they wouldn't care. It's like, oh yeah, I'm an
I
alien.
had two stories, one alien one and one paranormal one about meeting somebody. But the alien one was, you know what? Still to this day, I can't explain it other than maybe like a breaker, like an electro. I don't know what it's called. That like I looked it up on YouTube. But a couple of years ago, literally, it's like 5:30 in the morning. It's still kind of dark out, and there was some really fucking loud, like whirling, like it almost felt like an earthquake or something right outside my window. It woke my whole building up because me and my roommate came like bouncing out into the like, what the fuck did you hear that? Like, what the hell was that? It literally felt like a plane or something crashed right in front of our street. And then we all ran out. It's like 5:30 in the morning and it's like me, him, all our neighbors, people across the street. And we're all outside in the front and we don't see anything. And we don't know what the hell it was. And I was like, was that like an alien? That had to be like an alien thing or something, right? Because the sound, that's what ripped us out of sleep it was a sound. It was this weird sound,
Future
light,
people.
and all this sort of thing. And the only thing I came close to figuring out was we looked up, and then we're like, well, somebody on the news has got to report it. And nothing. We like did Google searches every hour on the hour. Like, why is nobody reporting on that weird thing from this morning? And the closest we got was like, there's a video on YouTube of something, some electronic breaker, like just exploding. Uh-huh. And we're like, did maybe like a breaker across the street explode? And that's what the light and sound was. I think
sometimes our time travel machines set off the breakers because they're on different wavelengths.
It's inexplicable.
So you really do,
or maybe you were walking by and you were in the wizard
that's
knocked
more likely
it down.
than aliens. Not because I don't believe in it. I'm sure aliens could exist far away, but I believe that there's no good reason for all the cover-ups if aliens existed, really, because it would be the one. In fact, the only way we could have peace on Earth would be if aliens culture. The only way Israel and Palestine, all these issues that are rooted in thousands of years of drama could be resolved would be if we had a common enemy. And so I believe if there was really an alien, people would be all over that. But the idea of us like having mastered something and we want to just look at things that happened, it would make sense to me that you would have to completely hide and you'd have to totally probe the hot ones.
But
that's
you
why.
haven't mentioned my paradigm within that.
Oh, what's the paradigm? Maybe I forgot it.
So yeah, because you were drunk as piss when we were arguing this on Friday night.
So we talked about that shit.
We did for like an hour.
Oh my God, I have no memory of that. That's pretty funny.
So you were saying that's why everything is shaped like a flying saucer. Because we saw that originally.
Time is like a circle.
Because
time keeps on tripping
in like 200
future.
years when we create it, we know that we have to create a flying saucer because that's what they see in the 50s. And I said, there has to be a break in the chain. There has to be one point where somebody says, I'm inventing a flying saucer. It can't just be a constant circle.
So there's still a cover-up somewhere.
Sure.
Yeah.
But, like, do you believe in things like cover-ups, like Roswell and all these? Like, do we believe that a cover-up could really happen? Like, do we believe the president? Like, does the president have a memo going, hey, just so you know, UFOs really were real?
Well,
we didn't go to the moon. Kubrick shot that.
I totally believe. I think there's so many government cover-ups that would not surprise me.
I just wonder how they wouldn't come out over time.
Oh, they're going to come out when Edward Snowden tells us.
Snowden's going to wait. He's going to be like, guess what? Roswell's real.
Guess what?
Aliens, also ghosts.
Yeah, no, from us from the future.
Us from the future.
I really like this idea that Rebekah said of that she doesn't believe until she's scared.
And then I do.
Which is like,
I'm slightly more
which
suggestible.
I very much identify with because I consider myself a staunch materialist. I don't believe in any of that stuff because why would you? It's not at all verifiable. But then I do scare myself sometimes into thinking like, oh, maybe.
Well, but don't you? I mean, look, energy is definitely good and bad mojo, or whatever you want to say. I mean, I've been in a house where I knew no information about a place in Savannah, and Savannah's meant to be one of the most haunted. Savannah and New Orleans are always called the most haunted city. I remember going into one place and just going, man, I've never felt like this place just feels awful. And then somebody told me the history about the place, and I'm like, oh yeah, it's got like the most buried bodies under it because during yellow fever they had to bury all and this is a house on prime real estate that is never sold. It's just sitting empty and on this like busy street in Savannah where everyone's like, how could you not? And people buy, and then it's back for sale.
I don't want to live in that body house.
I'm such a huge skeptic. I've never walked into a house and had like bad mojo.
Me neither.
I never believe in ghosts. And even if it's like 3 a.m. and I'm by myself and I'm psyching myself out that, oh my gosh, that figure down the hallway could be slightly moving, or mine, like I'll look at paintings in my bedroom and be like, did that painting move? I think that painting moved. And, and none of it's ever real. It's just me psyching myself out. I'm such a huge skeptic.
The house that Zane and I grew up in is haunted.
I disagree, but I always like to hear Brea talk about it because I want to believe her because she's my sister. And so I slightly convince myself in the moment.
But neither you or I will sleep in the rooms that are haunted.
I just do that because you won't do it.
We won't sleep in the haunted rooms when we go home.
What made you think it was one just like creaky?
I don't even believe in ghosts, but when I was in high school,
you're going to get visited by one now because you just said you
there
didn't.
There were ghosts that would come into my room at night and they would whisper to me, and next to bed they'd be like, Brea, 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 Brea. And sometimes they'd clap.
Really?
And sometimes I'd run around my room clapping, and I would wake up and I would hear it, and I would still hear it when I was awake. And I'm convinced that house is full of poltergeists.
When I was 6, I remember waking up. Which I like to call
poltergeist.
And a leprechaun flew into the room sitting Indian style. Is that racist?
No. Wait, the leprechaun?
Which part? Nobody knows. and then I looked at it and I was like, started to go say something, and then it blinked at me and my eyes closed. And then I was terrified because I was like, it's gonna come and get me. And then I opened my eyes and it was gone. And then I was dreaming. Clearly, I was dreaming.
That's a dream.
That's my
Mine was
only
real.
Minor things. It's like I have a memory of my grandfather standing next to my bed. This is after he died, like when I was a little girl, and I remember him like being there in my room when I woke up one night. And then the next morning, I was like, oh my gosh, I saw my grandfather. And now looking back, I'm like, obviously I was dreaming and just didn't even realize it because I was like 6.
I think being skeptical is definitely the healthy thing. But I'd also say to not believe is anti-intellectual to not believe because, like, Christ, we live this very minor part of the universe and the cosmos. To think that all energy just stops is kind of limited in its own right. I don't have any good answers for it. But I think that would be very closed-minded to not believe.
I agree.
Like,
we only use a very small percentage of our brains.
Right.
If maybe we used a little bit more, we would see ghosts.
And it's often damaged people who seem a little more sensitive or damaged who have these experiences. What's the name of the woman from the entity? I mean, when you open up the case about her family, there's some alcoholism and there's other chains of abuse, and the kids were being abused during this too. From these ghosts. Obviously, Amityville opens up to a lot of different interpretations about their real story.
Did you see that documentary
about the son? Where you're not sure where the abuse comes from, but the people seem some very. I mean, when I meet a skeptical person, like I have one story that makes me almost completely believe it, even though I don't. I'm like you guys. I'm skeptic, but in this table maybe I am a little more open. But it was my mom, and my mom is like more skeptical than I could ever be, and she had a definitive story that she tells, and she goes, I still don't know what it means, but like she was at a university and she had like 3 guys that were studying late in New Zealand. This is like 1970 something, and I was told this ghost story my whole life. Like growing up, this was the story, and she doesn't believe in anything. Which it's really, she's basically one of the nihilists in Lebowski, wearing all black. But yeah, basically she's at a university and they have these long hallways where you have to turn a light down at each block, so you have to go through the dark to get to the next light.
Oh yeah,
and it goes on for like half a mile kind of thing. And it was like past midnight. A caretaker came by and said, this is so 1970s. Oh, you guys can lock up for the night. And the caretaker leaves the university. And basically it's her and these macho dudes apparently. And like she said, like they go down the lights and no one's creeped out. It's just they've been studying and when they get to the final major passageway, they turn off the lights. And she said they're walking in single file, so they have to go through the complete darkness. And she said the Scottish woman's voice boomed. It boomed on all sides of them, and it just said, "The whites of your eyes, the whites of your eyes." And she said they weren't even that scared in that moment because they were just like, quickly get to a light. One of them turned it on, and they searched that whole block, so nobody got to the door, turned on, like screaming, like running out the door, ran into someone, screamed, ran down. She said she, put her bed in front of her, door for that next day. But they still didn't believe it. They just couldn't explain it because they were looking everywhere. And one of them went to the dean or whatever to see if like maybe somebody had played a joke on them. And when they were talking and nothing came up, they're like, I don't think anything happened. And she said, oh, well, the person had a Scottish accent, and turned out a Scottish exchange student had tried to get in the elevator and that hadn't been built out and fell to her death in there.
Wow.
And somebody was saying, somebody then commented to her saying, well, the whites of your eyes is probably the only thing you see in the dark. Ugh. You would see the whites of an eye. And I remember her telling that story. And she believes, she's telling the story. It's creeping out. And she goes, but I don't believe in any of it. So I just don't know. I don't know how to explain it. And I remember just like as a kid, I bet that story has as much to do with my interest in horror, because that feeling of like,
oh, it's creepy.
And I kind of like the idea of calling a film "The Whites of Your Eyes" one day. It's pretty scary.
It's good. Maybe
but it's when a skeptic tells you a story like that, they're telling you all the thing, and they can't come unless somebody was there playing a practical joke on them. But
right.
They were the last ones there.
I have to say, I mean, I choose not to believe anything because I just sleep better at night if I don't do that.
Right.
Although, it's similar, like some of the stuff you've heard, you were saying like whispers and stuff. When I was younger and even recently, I suffered from sleep paralysis, which is a big part of, it's when your body releases an endorphin to keep you still and paralyze you so you don't get up. Like if you're dreaming that you're running, you don't get up and start running. Mm-hmm. And sometimes when you're just like ripped out of sleep really quickly, it still kind of has the effect on you. So
I've had that happen.
You can't move, but you think and you kind of hallucinate and think you're hearing and seeing some pretty fucked up shit.
I've had it that I've woken up and not been able to move yet. It'll take me a couple of minutes before I can move my body.
Yeah, that's sleep paralysis.
It's freaky. I can think of 2 specific instances where I've had that happen. It's really freaky.
Yeah. Have you guys had anything like that as adults? Like anything that's really scared you?
No. Oh yeah, no, actually, yeah. I was really high one time, and I was in New York, and I was staying at somebody's place, and I got up because I felt like I couldn't breathe, and then I looked back, and I saw this like old, desiccated man in this chair, and it was like really white in the darkness, and then I put on my glasses and turned on the light, and it was just like a shirt.
Yeah.
That's not scary at all. That's not scary.
Yeah, it could have been there.
I will say that I actually, ironically enough, I did one interview for the Montauk Chronicles, Chris Caratano's movie, here in LA with Barry Taff, who is the actual guy from the Entity case. Oh, now, I've only watched the Entity once as a kid, and I've never it scared me so bad I've never had the energy to watch it again. He was a fascinating guy, and he was a really good interview. He came to us, and we lit all these candles and stuff around. But like, there was definitely an energy. Like I was not creeped out by the man, but him telling his stories and with the conviction that he was telling them with. And these revolve around alien type stories. I was really creeped out. There's definitely a weird negative energy. And even when you watch the interview, the film, there's like weird shit happening in the background, stuff falling over that has no right to fall over, things like that. And I think we forgot, we shot it at Spooky Dan's house, ironically enough. And I think we left all the candles lit, and thank God, and they, for some reason, it's like they went out the second we walked out the door. Like when, we forgot about it the next day. We're like, oh my God, they're not going to be there for a day or whatever. And we went back, it's like they were burned. They didn't burn all the way out. You know what I mean? They were just where they were. But yeah, that's like the closest, like somebody that people that totally believe it and have that energy is definitely a huge influence when you're in their presence.
Well, they have to always be pretty powerful personalities.
Yeah.
And convincing people.
Have you guys actually had like psychic readings before? Like we used to have.
That. No.
I have. And it was, I mean, I couldn't buy into it. We used to have a girl who worked at Fango that was very much into psychics. And she would bring, like, she would go have lunch with her psychic, and then her psychic would walk her back to the office and like say stuff to me. And I don't know. I just couldn't
like, what did she say to you?
Psychic stuff?
Yeah, it was very much like
she was like, I like your shirt.
You know, and I was like, oh my God, I know. No. But no, she'd be like, Friday's going to be your day this week. It's your lucky day. And then Friday rolls around and
then
I'm
she
like,
gives you a coupon at TGF Friday.
Yeah. I mean, that's like star sign reading. That's
And I mean, but I can see how it works, because then all day Friday I'd be like, oh, what?
Totally.
What happened? I just found a penny
Secret.
on the
There's
subway.
that
Was that my lucky?
It's that book, The Secret. It's that idea of positive thinking can generate things. But I do find, I did a show. We were at film school and we met this guy, and he was like the leading Savannah guy. And we went on all these tours with him. And for basically the whole build up to us making the short film on him, documentary on him, we all completely believed. Like he had us just convinced of everything. And then during the shooting of it, it became the total opposite. Where we started seeing the businessman side, he like starts talking about all the chains he owns of businesses, of ghost tour, and you started seeing this other side where you're like, oh, it's like a real old school charlatan kind of concept, and we're all really disappointed once we're in it. You know what I mean? But the build up, the salesmanship. Now the stories are still scary as hell. I gotta say, like, and there's places where I think maybe an energy might be different than ghosts. I don't know, but when there's been murders places, they do tend to have some different feel of people. I don't,
One time I was at this book reading, and it was like this feminist performance artist or something. This isn't college. And I went and got this book signed by her, and she fancied herself a psychic, and she grabbed my hand and she was like, you have somebody who is really sick in your life. And I was like, no. And she was like, yeah, there's somebody who's like sick, like mentally or physically, like maybe they're in a wheelchair, they're sick. And I was like,
your brother.
No. And I was in college at the time, and like, in your college, like everybody knows kind of like healthy and young and drinking, but they're fine. And she was like, well, they're going to get better. And I was like, Nick.
Good.
Yeah. And it was like so, like, it's one of those things where I felt like you probably could have said that to most people and they'd be like, I do. But like at the time, I literally didn't know anybody who was sick.
Well, I know last year, this is more of speaking of their price. I know last year around Halloween, the three of us talked about bringing a professional psychic on the show, because we thought it would be cool if we brought a professional psychic on and actually tried to get readings. Mm-hmm. And so I think
recommended that girl that you just
I might have recommended her.
There's the woman from the media.
You should actually have her, because she's really fascinating.
I know. I contacted about 5 different people saying, hey, we have a radio show. We're all kind of skeptical and we're interested in having a psychic on. And I could not find a psychic that was not like $800 an hour. All of the 5 that I looked into for our 2-hour show, it was going to cost us over $1,000. And I was like, I can't even afford this.
I'd love to meet the ones who help cops, because that's where it gets like, it's not that, because you have to kind of come up with hard evidence. Otherwise, the cops aren't going to take you seriously.
It's not like you should wear blue on Thursday. It's
that's what you should get. Because they probably don't cost that much.
No, well, I think the woman...
They're doing a civic duty. For
Real Housewives from Beverly Hills, I think on one of the episodes, the woman who the medium is based on was on it, and she was really ticking them all off. She was saying really weird things about their relationships and stuff. And
I love it.
So we should put a poll out to the fans.
That would be interesting.
So fans, if you're in the Los Angeles area and you know a psychic that we should be talking to.
A real psychic.
Yeah.
A real psychic.
864.
We want to be
Do you think, and this is like back to Supernatural, the reason why like you don't want to believe, and I think it's the same reason I don't want to believe, sorry, Rob, is because if something real happened to me, because I believe I'm mentally sane, if something happened like tonight when I got home and I just had like one of those experiences, I feel like then suddenly the world is different forever and you're kind of fucked. Like then a tap is open and now you're never going to be normal again and you can't. And so there's like, I think a part of our mind is just a huge wall of denials built already to try to do its best to not see anything outside of reality, because otherwise we are in danger of, also we're in danger of being seen as crazy by everyone else.
Have you ever hallucinated before?
I don't think so.
I have. And that was like one of the scariest moments. And it wasn't even like, I didn't think.
From drugs or just from hallucinating?
Mine was from a reaction with a drug. I was given this asthma drug called Theodore. and it's not used very. I kid you not.
Yeah, Alvin.
No, it's also called theophylline. Is the technical name for it. And I was.
Where can people get this drug?
Actually, I think they still pass it out for asthma patients. But I was maybe in 8th grade. I was definitely older. I was definitely like almost a preteen when they gave it to me. And I was just sitting in my bedroom, and it was just like one of these things like you never even think about, where all of a sudden I was seeing shit. And it became a question of, am I going crazy, or do I tell my parents what's going on? And I told my parents, and I immediately went downstairs. But I distinctly remember there being a moment where I was like, am I losing it? Is this me? I'm going crazy, because what you're seeing looks 100% real. I was seeing horses. There were horses in my bedroom.
And that's a fun hallucination.
And I was scared to death to use the bathroom because there were fish in the toilet.
Sure.
And and it was just things like that. Like, it wasn't like a cool acid trip or anything like that, where like I'm talking to God and, God's a giant chameleon or anything like that. It was just very much like,
is God a giant chameleon to you?
He is. That was a later
lizard
trip.
people.
But like insanity is the in America especially. I mean, I think insanity is the ultimate outsider. I think people try to push anyone in their family who was ever mental. And there's in the 60s we had so many problems with these hospitals, and then I think I know from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest that in Oregon, which is where that real place was, that I can't remember. It's like 1983, but a year came around where laws just changed and just. Everyone
got out.
Yeah, they pushed everybody out of
there. So these are people who needed, and I think there's something about not dealing with, like, we're so scared of, being seen as different. And I'd be terrified, because if it really happened, I don't think many people would believe me.
No, I think losing your mind is a really big deal in America. And I think it's also a big embarrassment. It's something we deal with a lot. I mean, this is kind of serious, but our father has Alzheimer's, and there's like something about that makes people like super uncomfortable. And it's like almost like going like, it's almost like claiming you have a relative with schizophrenia or somebody, like, because it makes people like, I don't know how to deal with in like when your brain doesn't work correctly.
Right.
I'm far more scared of going insane than I am ghosts.
So, me as well, for sure.
But what I'm getting at is, what if it's all connected? What if insanity is just the people who've seen the truth or seen something outside the normal that they then can't turn off?
That's what happened to me.
That's why it's creepy.
In terms of ghosts, I wish I knew the comedian, but I remember us talking, I think it was talking to Lawrence Raffel from FEARnet, and he was telling me about some comedian that has this whole shtick about, here's why I don't believe in ghosts. Where are the dinosaur ghosts? Where are the dog ghosts? Like, why are we only haunted by human ghosts?
Yeah, but they might not be.
So are you saying the dinosaurs didn't have souls?
Correct.
Are you saying that we have
dogs
souls?
don't have souls?
I don't believe that.
I love dogs.
I have a ghost.
Dogs have a soul.
Dogs have souls.
Yeah,
Guys,
I've seen all dogs go to heaven.
Why don't dogs haunt us? Why don't animals haunt us?
They do in movies. There's movies with ghosts who like animals.
Obviously, Pet Cemetery.
Well, whatever. I'm not going to acknowledge that because I don't want to believe.
But I do think it's interesting that we deny that horror. Like, horror is our safe playground for all of us. We watch these movies because it's safe. But like, the reality is, monsters were literally real. Literally, dinosaurs fucking existed, and we have proof. So that's crazy. That's really scary and surreal. We know that cannibals existed. We know that there was trials for real witches and women who were just killed for maybe being witches. By men and people and by religion. So we have all these things in our history that are actually just real, that I think we deny those things the best. Those are the parts of our history books that we spend the least time looking at. Like, everything's kind of, we had dinosaurs. Yeah, there they were. And it's just like, no. Holy fucking shit, we had dinosaurs.
Really
like, how is that possible? How far-fetched is Loch Ness? Not
narwhals
far-fetched.
are real. Narwhals are real.
Yeah. I'm always intrigued by the lines that are drawn within religion, even because, like, I have a family member who's incredibly religious, and, she's definitely going to heaven, and everything that she does is for the Lord and Savior. But if I even mention something about Satan or demons or anything like that, she's like, it's not real, Bekah.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think if you say yes to one, you're opening up the whole realm of possibility of everything.
Right, like if you say yes to to a God, and you have to believe in like hell dimensions.
Or that anything's possible. And I kind of like to, I'm like on the skeptic who also goes, hey, but anything's possible. Anything.
Yeah, because in the Bible, like, angels come down and appear to people. Like, all sorts of things happen in the Bible if you believe, I
don't want to name drop again.
But do it.
But
I'm hanging out with Clive Barker. I'm eating ice cream with Casper Van Dien.
I was working on a little movie with a high-pitched Tom Selleck. And we were shooting this shot, and we couldn't get it. And then we only got one good take of it, and there's a little ghost in the background in the window.
3 men and a baby.
I got to say, that is crazy. You watch that clip. If you haven't done this
I
before.
thought it's just Ted Danson's cutout.
No, somebody tried to explain it as that, but it wasn't tall enough. And also,
That's really funny.
also
That's a kid.
no one, I've seen some bad filmmaking mistakes. No one would miss that. If you set up a shot and your two characters are right there and behind them was a giant Ted Danson cutout and he's one of the guys in your movie, no one would miss that. That's too big. Like,
I'm sure it's on
I've
YouTube.
never
it looks
seen
like a
it.
child.
It is a child. It was somebody on set.
Somebody's dead child on set.
It was
Like,
like-
Gutenberg.
It was like you.
Is Gutenberg's
David
dead New
Gutenberg.
Zealand Lobo child. Lobo
Some
from
of
New
the
Zealand.
Wizard of
Lobo
Oz
child.
isn't there a little like a little
Oh,
person?
there's a hanging.
It's supposed to be the hanging midget.
Yeah, who hung
it's
himself
not.
because he
It's
was.
like a crane.
No.
Or
Yeah, it's a
something.
Have you ever
crane.
seen those houses in Burbank? That's a weird thing.
No,
What?
what houses?
There are these houses on Hollywood Way around Olive that they housed the dwarfs in, and they're and the doors are really small.
Oh, weird.
Are they?
Yeah, that's really cool.
Adorable.
But yeah, the Wizard of Oz, you can only see that ghost if you're listening to Pink Floyd.
Right.
Yeah.
Dark Side
Maybe
of the Moon.
that's why I'm such a skeptic. Is I've never heard any theory like the creature and Danson or the Wizard
Black
of Oz
Lagoon.
that isn't easily explained by something else.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a bird. Oh, it's a cardboard cutout. I've never had anything where it's just like, how the fuck did that happen? My brain can't fathom it, and therefore I have to believe it.
But to be fair, as humanity, have we not always had like an explanation for things? Haven't we always been like, and the world is flat, and that is what we believe as a group of people, and then it is
Then we move
suddenly
forward,
proved
yeah.
wrong, and like, oh, now this is our belief. Or we used to believe if you put, slugs on your body, not slugs,
yeah.
leeches. That was helpful. Like we have these
Bermuda
beliefs.
Triangle is interesting. I mean, again, it could be explained.
Weather
There could be magnetic
conditions.
energy, or there could be certain energy. But these things are interesting. Like I
agree.
also think like this deep sea stuff hasn't been explored that much.
Yeah.
And,
That was one of the Shark Week
completely,
ones.
Yeah.
I'm completely skeptic, but I think if tomorrow someone was like, and it turns out ghosts exist, I'd be like, okay, I believe that. Like I would
Yeah.
not take that much to
if
convince
Zane
me.
had an experience that, like, if he came to you tomorrow, kind of like what my mom said to me,
Yeah.
and had a story like that, but he now believed at least that story.
I'm like, Alf
Would that be
is
enough
real.
to?
No,
convince
not
you?
if Zane said it.
Okay, so you're more skeptical.
No, I want like a scientist to prove it.
Yeah.
Again, it's my faith
Wait,
in experts.
back it up. Alf's not really.
Alf.
Is real.
Really?
Alien life form.
For real? Help me, Rhonda? Wait a minute. This
Help me,
show just took a
Rhonda.
crazy turn. Back it up, yo. Okay.
It's H.P. Lovecraft's birthday. Did you
It
guys
is.
know
That's
There you go.
yeah, it is.
You already talked about that?
No, we didn't.
No,
But
we
it's,
didn't.
it makes sense why we would be going into the unknowable. I think that's the key. It's meant to be unknowable, which means if you could get your head around it, it wouldn't be scary. If something is explainable, oh, it's a ghost and it's here for this reason, it's
Yeah.
not that scary. If it's something that is a dark entity that's just hanging out there and you have no reason to understand it, that's terrifying.
Yeah, that's true.
And Lake Mungo actually is quite a terrifying. We didn't want to ruin it for people who hadn't listened, but the way she sees this thing of what it represents is actually the best thing about it. It's
Yeah,
actually-
that was actually my favorite
it's
moment. I
very
could have,
creepy.
if you just made that as a short, I kind of would have been
Yeah.
there.
Is it
Actually,
like
I felt like that should have been a short. Was it a short to begin with? I feel like it was a short that
Might
got
have
made
been,
into a
that
feature.
might have been drawn out. While we're on subject, just to throw out a few titles. We don't have to talk about them because you're running out of time.
Yeah.
Should we?
There are
break
what titles? What are you talking about?
no? Let's do
titles
it.
of movie? You sure?
Movies of paranormal investigators.
Well, just some interesting ones for people. We always throw out a lot of time. I think one of the best ones ever made came out on Blu-ray this week from Scream Factory, which is Legend of Hell House. I think that film
Oh, yeah,
is
it's a great
an
one.
incredible
Yeah,
film,
yeah.
and that's
I
very
have
much
it.
about scientists trying to explore it.
I have the German version.
I always liked
yeah.
the Sam Raimi
have the
movie.
German
The
Drag Me to
Gift.
Hell?
No, The Gift.
The Gift's interesting, yeah.
Yeah, it's a psychic investigator and everything who's kind of picking up on
Yep.
vibes from next
Some
door, and it's got that creepy fiddler dude in it.
Yep.
And yeah, that movie
Kate
definitely.
Blanchett pulling
That's
that.
one of the
Are we
few
like-
I've never seen of Raimi's. I gotta
good.
check that one
It's
out.
actually pretty good.
Don't approach it thinking it's going to be a horror film because it kind of isn't. I mean,
Yeah.
it's supernatural, but it's not in a horror tone.
That is,
Right.
it's scary when she goes into that bank.
I don't even remember the bank scene.
Well, no, wait. What are we talking about?
The Gift.
The Gift.
Never mind.
Oh, you're
Oh,
talking Drag Me to Hell.
Drag Me to Hell. Oh, Drag Me to
That
Hell.
is
Good
scary.
too.
That
And
is scary.
that goes that way.
That's
Well, some of them are non. Sometimes they're not like scientists and stuff. I was thinking about.
the Frighteners, Frank Bannister,
Frighteners is
Frighteners
really
is a great
fun.
Michael J.
one.
Fox.
But I was thinking about like Candyman is one,
yeah.
and that's a really interesting one because she's not like, oh, I'm going to scientist. She's like a researcher doing like literary stuff and like researches. And I find that to be I wish people would come up with a new angle people more of the time like that.
Yeah.
Rather than just, I am a parapsychologist.
Yeah.
It's like,
Candyman's
okay.
good.
I liked the Innkeepers, and I feel like that was a
Love that
nice,
one.
like, amateur sort of like one guy's just like real into ghosts,
Yeah.
and I
That was a
like that
cute
it's.
one.
That was I like.
No, I think
that's a
that
cute horror movie.
chemistry and that was the most fun. The little website they're trying to keep
Yeah,
on.
it's
it's
like
funny.
adorable. Yeah, and it was funny and cute.
I always like The Haunting because it was trying to lend that
Haunting's
scientific
great,
side to it. Both of them. I like the remake as well.
Whoa!
I know.
Stop the show!
I
This-
know.
I cannot know. Oh my god, that's worse than Freddy's Dead.
No way.
Rennie Harlan.
No way.
I remember when
no.
Conjuring came out. I remember saying, "What's the actress in Conjuring?"
Wait, the new
Oh,
No,
Lily,
the-
Lily Taylor.
Lily
Yeah,
Taylor.
she
I
was
felt
in
like
Haunting
this was
remake.
her penance,
redemption.
her
I'm not
redemption.
saying The
from-
Haunting is wonderful. It's
I
the
liked it.
remake,
The
but
Liam Neeson one?
it definitely.
Get out of here.
When I first saw it, and I saw it in the
Rennie
theater, and I
Harlan.
gotta say, I've only seen it the one time in the theater. I did not hate it. It's not
remember
the
I
just-
enjoyed
original.
it at the
I
time.
remember it just being boo scared. The original is amazing.
Yeah,
That's the Shirley Jackson, like, true too. The Haunting of Hill House. Like, it's the based
Haunting?
on. Yeah, I think, right? It's
I don't know.
based on, it's based on.
Oh, it
Shirley
might be. It
Jackson.
might be. Yeah.
The Conjuring's a good one though.
Conjuring's great, and we were just talking early before you guys came how hard it is in a studio level to make something that's actually creepy because
amazing.
usually it's an indie film that creeps you out. But
Yeah.
like the Quiet Ones didn't work in that.
Have
Trying
you
to
guys
do it.
seen the Annabelle trailer? For
I
Lily
have not
Taylor?
seen it.
It looks
it looks
really
great.
cool.
It does.
Yeah.
So, I really like Stir of Echoes.
Yeah, it's a great one.
Do
Yeah.
they investigate that,
Yeah, well, I mean,
or is it more just a classic ghost?
I think
story?
it,
Him
no,
and a
it's
house.
definitely not a classic ghost story because he meets a psychic and she gives him like a reading and allows him to predict something, and then from that he's able to sense something about somebody else and it leads him on a path.
She puts him, I guess, when he goes under, or she reads, she opens up something. So the main character, played by Kevin Bacon, now can see
What he
something
couldn't.
in his house what he initially couldn't.
So the idea of
I
not being
really
able to
like,
turn
yeah,
on.
that's a really good movie too.
Yeah.
I like that
The
one.
one I wanted to like more than anything, and it has like everything about it should work, and it's about debunkers, was that film Red Lights, and it had like De Niro and
I saw that
it was
on the
like
list
last
when
year.
I was looking
Cillian
today.
Murphy in that?
Yeah, so he's the main character. It's shot beautifully. It's like by a Spanish director, Rodrigo, saying. And it was one of those movies on paper, look, De Niro's in it. It's like a blind guy's. And if there was something about it that I just hated because all these cool elements like never came together.
I remember I was going
But
to
it was
watch it and it
shot
has like
beautifully.
1.5 stars
Yeah,
on
no, it's
like
shot
Netflix
gorgeous,
or whatever I
and
was
it was
going to
a
watch
big
it on.
release. And I
Weird.
remember watching it going, oh, come on, bring it all
hated
together.
it,
And it just
yeah.
never came. But it's really about debunkers. And I think more. I would love to see a great film about something about just throw this out there. Not everyone knows this, and I didn't know till I went to the Magic Castle about Houdini. But Houdini
yeah.
Oh,
is
yeah.
so fascinating because here's a guy who built his whole career on magic, and spent the last. I would like to see a movie not about the first part of his life, but just about this one period. And
There is.
about debunking.
It's the second half of there's a Houdini movie I saw from like the 60s or something, maybe older. I think it was in Technicolor. And the second half, he is doing all these seance things. Anyway, sorry.
Yeah, well, he's basically, his mother died and he had a seance room, but then basically got upset about, he basically went around to all these small towns, basically debunking anyone who said they were magic or psychic. So he spent this whole second half of his career debunking myths and stories like this. And I think that's a really interesting idea, but I thought what would be really cool is actually a fictional film where he's going around debunking things and then something,
But
something
doesn't
he can't
he
disprove.
die didn't he die during a trick?
He did in the water.
Yeah.
Oh, but it wasn't magic. It was just like
Well, it's just tricks. They're all
yeah,
tricks.
just a trick.
He
That's why
believed
they're not
they
real
were.
magic. We just shattered.
How do you do that? How do you do
That
that?
must be magic.
But I mean, that's a great example of
Beanie.
a powerful figure who built a whole career on tricking you.
Yeah.
Then spending the rest of his time going, actually, you know what? I want to show behind this curtain because people do take advantage of people.
I actually stayed at Houdini's house for a couple of days.
Whoa.
Oh, that house in
What?
Canyon.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why?
That's cool.
I know you can rent it for parties. It's
Yeah, Spooky Dan Walker
Name
and
drop.
his wife Tammy got married there.
Ah.
They rented it for a week, and it was before I lived here. So
I thought Spooky Dan's last name was Dan.
no, it's a Walker.
First name Spooky, last name Dan.
First name Spooky, last name
Did you
Dan.
think that was
Yeah,
at all
spooky.
any kind of weird vibe there?
And I was actually looking for it, but no, not at all.
I felt it at Queen Mary for
Oh,
sure.
sure.
Queen Mary.
For sure.
Really?
Everyone, we had our wedding party on there. So everyone stayed the night. My mom and her husband, the shower turned on in the middle of the night. And I was in the Windsor room.
Where is that? In Long Beach?
Yeah, Long Beach.
That's Long Beach.
And it's meant to be
California.
haunted. They do haunted tours. I mean, it might just be bad old rigging, but I remember sleeping in this Windsor room, which is where the royal family had stayed. And there's pictures of like old royal stuff.
where
And
Dr. Dre was
It
born.
was just, I hated it. Oh, really? Yeah, the Dr. Dre in the Windsor.
Yeah.
But it was really creepy.
Long
And
Beach.
a lot of it's just in your
With a
mind. but
flick.
I didn't feel at all comfortable there. I wish I hadn't stayed there. I remember not enjoying like the
I will never do that.
being
Thank you.
there. Yeah,
Thank you for letting me know.
Weird. But who the hell knows? I mean, that's what's great about it. It's like we won't be able to answer it, but it's
Ghost Girls.
endlessly creepy.
Speaking of boats, have you
to
seen
go.
Below? I think I've had this conversation with you before. I love that movie.
No, I don't think I've seen that one.
Yes, you have.
Oh, really?
Okay, it's from
Aronofsky
2000.
wrote it?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the one.
2002.
I haven't seen it.
Aronofsky. You should. You would actually really like it. It's this submarine. We have to wrap.
Yeah.
No, you guys just keep talking. We're just gonna. We have to go. Zane has to go to an improv show.
I got audition for Mirrors 4.
Mirrors 4.
I auditioned for at least
Mirrors
the
on my
first and
list.
maybe the second one of those. I auditioned for one of those.
Mirrors?
Mirrors
no,
2.
no, I got an offer to be in Mirrors 2,
Right?
but
Oh,
I
second
did not
cash
take it because I was
Before
full
you go,
frontal
are you-
nudity while dying.
FFN.
I wish you
Maybe.
did because that's the only time I went to Baton Rouge just for Mirrors.
I
2.
wish you
So
just
you
stopped.
could
I wish you
seen
did when
me
you
full
did.
frontal
I wish you did.
nude
FFND.
dying.
Are you in any horror stuff coming up, or is it all other stuff?
Yeah, I am.
Whoa.
She can't talk
Oh,
about
you're
it.
not allowed to talk about it.
I have two coming up that I
I'll
can't talk
tell you
about
what they are.
yet. But I am in this movie called Smothered that's starting to come out various places. It's John Schneider directed, and Kane Hodder and Bill Moseley and R.A. Mihailoff and a bunch of other people are in it, and me, and I have
So the psychic you met on the canoe. Going back to R.L. Miller.
and who? What else do I? I mean, and then I'm in some movies that I'm not allowed to talk about because they've been announced.
We're not sure.
Announced.
I'll find out about that other one and
We're not
see
going
if
to
I
tell
can
you,
announce
but
it
it
next
could
week.
be Wes Craven. That's all we're saying. We're not going to tell you what it is, but it could be
Could
Tobe
be,
Hooper.
could
Tobe
be.
Hooper.
It's Toby Hooper.
I like to
Man.
say Tobe,
Tobe.
Old Tobe.
Tobe.
but it might not be.
Toby,
So don't hold me to it.
Tobe.
Probably not. Probably someone else.
All right.
Yeah, I'm
Well, we're
sorry.
not allowed
I'm
to say
sorry.
so.
It's not
Say
very
that.
interesting. But Mystic Party, you know what I'm saying?
Check out Mystic Party.
Weekly.
Weekly. WEKLY. Check it out on Facebook and iTunes. Follow me
Twitter?
on @Zane Grant.
For someone
gotta
who's
keep
in a hurry,
plugging
he
ourselves.
talks real slow.
He still talks like an East Texan, and I do.
Oh, okay.
He's really thinking about everything
Yeah.
he said.
Everything.
You know,
I don't
unlike
think
you.
at all.
I get that note a lot.
Stream of
You're
consciousness is
totally
where the
on a
best stuff
different
comes.
cognitive plane than you are,
That's right.
Elric.
Yeah.
That's the
You gotta-
note that I get. It's always
Quicker synapses.
we can see the gears turning. But you know what? Sometimes it works in my favor.
Right.
It's true.
So
Sorry we're leaving your podcast early.
Yeah, this is
Wow.
like this has never happened. They're
No,
storming
let's
out of our
wrap
show.
up.
You're gonna
total
storm
affront.
out. I'm so
We're
angry and I'm
offended by
leaving.
your staunch atheism and anti-ghost policies. We believe you are all communists.
Wow.
That-
There
I'm
you go.
going to
That's-
do a call to our
that's what we
audience.
get.
We want to hear if any real paranormal stories.
Yes.
We want
That's
to
a
hear if
good
anything
idea.
real
We
has
do
ever
too.
happened.
Real
That would be
ghost
fun.
stories.
We do too.
Skeptics, we want to hear from you if something weird happened that you cannot explain in your life.
I'm scared.
864 Mystic 4. I'm serious. Call it. Leave a
You can
message.
leave us a message. We'll
If
play
you
it on
can
the show.
convince him, he will eat pizza. If you can convince him of a real
a
ghost, that
pizza.
way he knows he'll survive the afterlife. It's a very
Jesus.
complicated
That's-
concept.
That is true. That is
Jesus
true.
pizza.
Cheeseless.
Oh,
you said.
yeah.
That's
Cheeseless
Jesus
pizza.
pizza.
I'll eat Jesus pizza if you can prove me wrong. I don't know what that would mean.
All
Thanks for
right.
coming, guys.
Well, thank you to the Grants.
Thank you for having
coming,
us.
Brea and Zane.
I really like
Thanks for the mix seating.
Hellblazer.
Hellblazer.
What's
Constantine.
He's my favorite paranormal investigator.
Oh, he is good.
Oh,
Yeah,
My
Yeah,
favorite
he's
is
good.
Ghost Girls.
All right, right on.
Ghost Girls, the
Ghost
comedy.
Girls.
Insidious is good too.
They're good.
Yeah, I
Insidious
like
is
those
good.
guys.
They did a good job with the investigation side. It's fun.
Really good.
Yeah, they did a good job with that. Not such a good job casting Darth Maul. Oh, burn.
Terrible.
So our guests have departed. They're dearly departed, but they, it's fascinating stuff.
Bounced fast.
They bounce fast. Yeah, they had to Mirrors 4 was their thing. They're going to. But we're just talking off camera. I don't know if any of you remember, but there was a show, John Edwards, I think is his name, Crossing Over with someone, and it was on Sci-Fi for a long time. And, he was dealing with real people who had lost people and talking about their spirits or saying goodbye. And shows like that could be seen as exploitive, if he's exploiting real people and he's not legit. But what if he's real?
I'm Googling
And he
him
has
right
an ability
now.
to, that's the kind of person, more than a psychic, I'd be very curious, especially if I knew. And the problem with Google now, and everything is these people could research you very easily and find out a few key facts about you.
Yeah.
And then kind of use them. But, I think I definitely am curious to hear people, if any of you have stories. I know some of you like listen to our show, like driving long commutes, or I know one of you is a trucker or drives, must be.
Steve Johnson.
Yeah, Steve, it must be tough on some of those long hours and, they're staying in lots of different places, I'm very curious, especially when we're kids. I think when we're kids, we maybe are more open to both suggestion, fear.
Yeah, 90% of my stories that revolve around paranormal experiences are all from when I was a kid.
Mine too.
And now that I look back, I think maybe it was just,
Yeah, because I remember playing with a Ouija board when I was a little kid and having like weird, freaky things happen. Like, oh my gosh, why is this here? And that shadow moved. And oh my God, the lights went out upstairs. Now I question if those things ever happened.
Right.
Or maybe they just did because I was more apt to believe when I was a kid.
Yeah.
But regardless, now I look back and I'm like, well, duh, we were playing with it during a thunderstorm. Of course the lights went out.
Yeah.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I know, our mutual friend Drew Daywalt talks about growing up in a house that he was completely convinced was
and
haunted.
he also did some videos, I think one Halloween from the Queen Mary.
Yeah. I don't know if they were serious or joke ones. I'm not sure.
I think he was being serious. I'm not positive, but
I know that when we did the screening of Possession of Michael King 2 weeks ago for Fango, they actually brought in an expert on ghosts from the Queen Mary to talk about how freaking haunted it was. And he brought EVPs along, which again, I'm so skeptical of, where like you hear them recording and everything.
I'm pretty skeptical of things like, with lights and meters. The idea that we can trace it seems
through
a little...
science.
But that was creepy. Anytime, like I remember when White Noise came out, the original, like that idea, like of being able to capture and listen to something that, could or could not be, inexplicable. But it's scary stuff.
Yeah, it does seem less likely when it's just video cameras picking up things that your eye wouldn't pick up. But it's interesting, and definitely the more you probe these movies, the more you realize it is a major subgenre. And I remember you saying on your way to the show that you actually found you really liked the subgenre.
Yeah, when
I find it's the one that creeps me out.
When I was looking through them, I was suddenly like, man, I've got a lot of like really fave films in here that I really do love. Ones that I've just kind of held to through the years. So yeah.
They tend to scare. I think for me, they tend to be the scary ones because, like, You're Next and things like that. I can enjoy movies like that, but it's impossible to scare me with watching a fictional version of something like that. Even Henry Portrait of a Serial Killer, it's like I can be like, oh, it's disturbing, but I can tell fact from fiction. Whereas when people are investigating something that's like,
well, again, I haven't been able to go back to The Entity since I first saw it, and I own it. And even The Exorcist is just the first one is only a movie I've seen maybe 3 or 4 times. It's very difficult for me to go back to.
Yeah. Well, and let's not forget, like Chainsaw Massacre and versions of movie and Psycho are all coming from these real incidents, and somewhere along that chain. Yeah. Ed Gein really is just like hanging out with his mother's body and making lampshades of skin. That's a real person.
Not as scary though as the idea of something haunting us.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's scarier on a practical level. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I don't want my kids to be abducted and eaten.
Obviously.
But it's not scared on that I'm alone in the dark and, I walk down the center of streets at night alone when it's pitch dark, a lot of the time because, whatever, the darkness, it's weird. Weird stuff.
Yeah. You're weird.
Not
You're
as creepy as Darren Bowsman's.
Darren Bowsman's got the scariest stories.
But I think that's pretty creepy.
But maybe you guys have some, so share them with us on the Facebook page.
Yes.
We'll put a call out. It'd be interesting.
I want to believe. I just don't have the mental
So you're
prowess
Scully,
to do
not
it.
Mulder.
No,
you're full Scully.
Well, see, I think I am full Scully because I am so skeptical of everything. I don't believe any of it. Every bit of it has some type of scientific explanation. And I've just, ever since I was like a teenager, I felt that way.
I definitely would be more
6.
Mulder.
Yeah.
In that sense. Yeah. I mean, in terms of, but still not full belief. Yeah, I would need something to happen to.
Everyone wants to be Duchovny, so that makes sense.
I just want to be Mulder, not Duchovny.
All right. Well, anyways, that was interesting. It was interesting, kind of delving, not so much into films, but just paranormal in general. I thought that was a fun discussion.
I would still love to get like a real paranormal investigator on the show at some point. I know.
I would like to talk to someone who just completely believes in this stuff and hear how they explain it.
I will not make eye contact with that person, but
they're going to steal your soul.
They'll burrow into your
I don't
soul.
want them taking anything from me.
Well, when I hear stories like James Wan, when he's doing Conjuring, going into that room, the real room, by the real parapsychologists, demonologists, I'm just like, I could never. I could not go in that
he's
room.
the type that's freaked out. Meanwhile, Joe Bashara, who composed and plays the demon in it, wanted to sleep in there overnight.
Wow.
And I think the Lorraine wouldn't let him, but he was like totally, he's like, I'd like to sleep in that room. And I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
Like, no way.
Yeah, no,
not with all those trinkets.
I guess it's if you give these things power, like you decide, it's up to you.
Yeah.
Like if you really don't believe, like Joe, obviously, you can just be fine.
Yeah.
But if you're like James and everything creeps you out, you're gonna die in there.
Yeah.
Die of fear, literally of fear.
You manifest it. I
Yeah,
guess.
totally. But it's interesting stuff. Anyway, thanks for bringing on your psychic friends, Rob.
Oh, all right. You're welcome.
That
we will absolutely do the medical malpractice next week.
Yes.
Yeah, we're all excited.
Got a little. You just have to rework the schedule, but it's next week for sure.
All right.
I'm psyched.
Cool stuff coming up. Can we say which movie it is, or should we hold that back? You know what would be cool is I would like people to know before they listen to it, because I think a lot of people probably wouldn't have seen it in a long time.
Yeah, they need to rewatch it.
Because
we have to rewatch it.
Yeah, let's all rewatch Dr. Giggles before
Dr. Giggles
week.
party before next week. Let's do it.
Yeah,
we should do a
do
live
it.
tweet watching Dr. Giggles or something. That would be fun.
Totally down.
That'd be fun. I haven't seen it since it came to
Manny
VHS.
Cotto, who I met on Dexter, will be with us next week.
Very cool.
So we'll see you then.
See you then. Thanks.